Welcome all to the node. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and this is your place for the truth about crypto, DeFi, and these markets. Today, I'm just gonna be real. Um, there is no shortage of people shilling XRP, and it's no secret that we are bearish on XRP here. I was in the top 2% of XRP holders for many years, and I saw what was happening. The narrative that XRP was going to be the chain that was going to do cross-border remittances. It was going to do away with Nostro Vostro accounts. It was going to, basically be the new rails of the financial system. That was the whole narrative of XRP. And I'm just going to come out today and I'm going to lay it all out. I'm going to have all the receipts. I'm going to have all the facts, and you can decide for yourself what you do with that.
Sweet, man. Let me get some popcorn. We dumping on XRP today?
I'm not dumping. I'm just going to state the facts. And
that is the same thing as dumping when it comes to XRP, because those facts don't exactly support all the claims that a lot of people keep making.
That I would agree with. So, that being said, I want to frame this. So when I first got into XRP and XRPL, and you need to understand the differences. There's XRP, which is the gas token. There's the XRPL, which is the ledger. There is RLUSD, which is the stable coin. And there is Ripple, which is the company that runs it all. And the whole narrative, before RLUSD, when it was just XRP, was that it wasn't just a gas token. And the whole reason that it was going to be this huge valuation was because, and the reason it got to the ridiculous valuation, I think, is because it was going to be used to eliminate Nostro Vostro accounts, which is the accounts that provides the liquidity for cross-border payments. So if you're trying to switch from US dollars to rubles or to the real or whatever, the dinar, then those Nostro Vostro accounts are what provide the liquidity for that to happen. And that was the whole thing with XRP, was it was going to eliminate that and facilitate atomic settlement of cross-border remittances. So instead of taking like 5 to 10 business days, it would be a matter of seconds. I was super bullish on that, back in the day, because that makes perfect sense. That's why I bought XRP. I had over 40,000 XRP. But as time went on, we started to see, because it was going to replace Swift. That was the whole narrative. We saw that Swift announced, and we have some news about that today, where they partnered with Chainlink and Linea, and they upgraded their rails, to blockchain, so that they could speed up the process and basically eliminated that whole Ripple is going to replace Swift. Ripple even shifted their narrative. They started buying banks. They started buying banking licenses. They shifted their whole focus. And a lot of people don't, a lot of these shills that talk about XRP all the time, they don't cover shit like this. They just shift their narrative and hope nobody notices. And I'm not going to get into why they do that, because there's different reasons for each of them, I'm sure. But as we showed, talking bullish about XRP, yeah, you'll get, freaking 4,000, 10,000, 40,000 fucking views. But we're not about views here. We're about the truth. We don't take payments. We don't accept any sort of compensation for talking bad or good about any project. We don't have any banners or freaking affiliate links or any of that. We're here to tell you the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. So let's get into it. David, what do you think today about this topic?
Well, I never, on its face, I always thought that the idea, Mike, just if we could go back to like first principles for a second, the idea of if I'm a bank like Chase and you're a bank like Goldman Sachs, and I want to, send you a payment, there's no reason for me to ever want to first swap that payment into XRP in order to send it to you like across borders or something. And it just doesn't make sense. That whole idea is a stupid idea. So as you were speaking, I was just going through the Intel library. We've got a dossier on Ripple. And so I was just going through the Ripple dossier and, just thinking to myself, how can we improve this? Like, how many more sources do we need? All of the works cited. And, we're citing Ripple. We're citing the SEC. We're citing, these are called primary sources.
So Snorky, with all due respect, you want to clown that, supposedly only 5 people are watching. Like we just said, we don't care. We're here to tell the truth. If we wanted 4,000 views, like hundreds of people watching right now.
Actually, Mike, it's 40 people watching Snorky. Get your facts straight.
Yeah.
We take all of the fucking, channels together, man.
But the thing is you can try to dismiss what we're saying based off how many people are watching, or you can pump the brakes for a minute and actually listen to what we're saying, because we're going to give the receipts. Like David was just saying, the deep dive in our Intel library on the Node.pro, we give access to that 100% free. We just like we don't take payments for different things, we offer DeFi University and our Intel library all for free. We have nothing to gain from giving out this information. We just want to educate you. Like David was just saying, we cite all of our sources, and that's what I'm about to do. But in our deep dive about Ripple and XRP, in the source document at the very end, we cite every single source where we got the information. And so,
and take a look at the quality of the source material. We're not citing fucking Yahoo News, okay? No. We're citing the SEC. We're citing Ripple Labs themselves, okay? Yes. Like, we're citing, these are called primary sources. Yes. So, if you want to throw shade, well, then you got to come with some facts. And it's going to be really hard to refute what these primary sources are saying. So, there is such a thing, Mike, as objective truth.
Yeah.
And as much as some people might want to believe in fairy tales around some of these projects, because someday, sometime in the future, maybe there might be something good. I don't know, man. I prefer to live in the real world and see what's going on right now on the ground. So what you got here? What's this?
So this is how we're going to be doing a deep dive on OpenUSD. And the reason that I'm starting with this is, if you don't know, OUSD was launched by a consortium of banks and institutions. And basically what they're saying is, we're not going to use a lot of other products and services that are trying to tackle this use case.
Yeah, we're not going to use Ripple, is what they're saying. We're not going to use Ripple.
They're saying that they're not going to use a lot of people, because there's a lot of people going after this market. Right. Akita was trying to go after this market. Ripple was trying to go after this market. There's a lot of people, because it's a very important use case. I'm not taking anything away from that, but you need to understand that these banks and institutions, we're going to start getting into this, they do not want to use a third party when they can just develop their own rails, develop their own stable coin, and address the issue of fragmented liquidity, the issue of Nostro Vostro accounts, all of those buzzwords that sound super important that a lot of these shillers of XRP use, because most people don't understand what those things are. They just sound sexy. They start talking about all these different things, and it's all these buzzwords. And
I don't know, man. Nostro Vostro sounds like some type of horrible disease. Oh, did you hear? Bob came down with the Nostro Vostro. He's got 6 months to live.
All right. So, first example, Swift. This is from Swift. So, implemented in 9 months, global from day one. Swift's blockchain-based ledger is ready for use with ANZ, BNP Paribas, BNY, Citibank, DBS, the First Abu Dhabi Bank, First Rand Bank, HSBC, Lloyd's Bank, basically just a bunch of fucking banks. And this is a significant step towards scaling tokenized finance powered by the standards, security, and global reach the industry relies on. By combining distributed ledger technology with Swift's secure messaging network, which is run by Linea. The ledger enhances liquidity efficiency, improves cash flow visibility, enables seamless token recognition. So what they used for their cross-border payments, to upgrade their system was Chainlink for interoperability and Linea for for encrypted messaging. That's it. They didn't use Ripple. They didn't use anything else. That was who they used. This is common knowledge. Do your own research. So I'm going to pop over to this. This is James Butterfield. He is
the guy on the left. I like him, Scott Milker.
Yeah, no, he's very even keel. But this CoinShares, he is what is he? Head of research or something like that. He's one of the execs at CoinShares. But listen to what he has to say.
I think your average investor can look at Hyperliquid and say, okay, I understand where the value is on the actual token based on the way that it interacts with the platform.
Right.
If you look at its tokenomics, it's really interesting. So I always compare it to XRP and Ripple, the Ripple Foundation. So the Ripple Foundation can do some cool stuff and perhaps negotiate with the local.
Oh, good point, Mike. This is great.
Transactions, etc. But that won't be reflected in the underlying Ripple or XRP. There is no value accrual mechanism between Ripple and what the foundation does and what happens to XRP. So as an investor, I think it's quite hard to rationalize an investment in that.
So let's pause it right there for a minute. What is it that we always talk about here on this channel?
Value accrual. That's what we talk about every day. The trifecta.
Exactly. Is the trifecta that we put together, and we have a graphic that we've shared, is if there's adoption, because without adoption, none of it matters. There needs to be adoption. There needs to be TVL on chain. There needs to be fees being generated. There needs to be revenue. And that's the second one, fees and revenue. So without adoption, you don't have fees and revenue. And without fees and revenue, it doesn't matter what the tokenomics are. It could have the best tokenomics and have value share or value accrual. But if there is no adoption and no fees to share, then it doesn't matter. So you have to have all three. And what he's saying and what we keep saying is that Ripple, no matter how successful they are, there is no value accrual for the token. They could make trillions of dollars. XRP is a gas token. And we're going to get into some exceptions to that, because some would say that if you're not doing dollar to dollar denominated transactions, if you're doing like US dollar to yen, then you have that liquidity issue. You have that fragmented liquidity where you need a bridge asset. And that's what everybody's hard on is about XRP.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense either, because that is an extremely liquid currency pair. That's like one of the most liquid currency pairs, full stop.
Well, I'm just using that as an example. Like say this
So is that one of the claims that these XRP maxis make, that
Yes.
You would need a bridge currency to go from dollars to some other fiat currency?
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's super retarded.
Yeah. So let me read this real quick. The Bank for International Settlements estimates that over 27 trillion sits completely idle in pre-funded Nostro accounts globally to bridge timing mismatches and cross-border settlement gaps. For banks, this is an incredibly inefficient use of balance sheet capacity. To unlock this trapped capital, institutional finance has stopped waiting for a single global rulebook and is building a unified multi-rail settlement infrastructure centered around three core approaches. Token deposits. Instead of relying on public stablecoins, major commercial banks are turning to their own balance sheet into programmable, tokenized networks. This allows them to move liquidity internally across their global branches instantly, 24/7.
Right.
So what does that mean? That means they are building their own networks. That is what SWIFT did. That is what the Bank of International Settlements is doing, and I'll get into that here in a second. They are building out an OUSD. They made their own stable coin. So the whole bullish sentiment around RLUSD and XRP, if you're paying attention, this is all melting away. So
it is, and we've got to be open and honest here too, Mike, about RLUSD. It's got some TVL, but when you compare it to Circle or Tether or even decentralized or quasi-decentralized stablecoins like USDS or DAI or Bold, even compared to those, it's relatively small. So you would think that Ripple Labs, having been around for since 2012, it's one of the oldest crypto projects out there, that they would have been able to ship something of value other than this small stablecoin product by this point in time. Well, what if they shipped? What if they shipped, man? They've got a stablecoin, a small one, and it sucks. So what's going on?
So next up, they say how it works. Banks issue tokenized deposits, digital representations of traditional commercial bank liabilities governed by the same regulatory frameworks. The institutional execution. JP Morgan Chase uses its Connexus network, formerly Onyx, to enable real-time cross-border treasury transfers for its corporate clients. HSBC and Citi have developed.
So Mike, let me pause you there on Connexus. You know who Connexus integrates with natively?
Go ahead.
Canton.
Thank you. I was going to get there, but you got there quicker. All right.
Oh, got it. My bad.
No, that's perfect. HSBC and Citi have developed similar proprietary networks by moving value instantly between their own global entity pockets. For example, New York and London to Tokyo. They drastically reduce the amount of idle capital needed to cover time zone settlement gaps. Multi-wholesale CBDCs, Project MBridge. While commercial banks handle private ledgers, central banks are building the standardized plumbing underneath them to allow sovereign currencies to interface directly without relying on SWIFT or a chain of multiple intermediary correspondent banks like Ripple. The infrastructure, the primary driver here is Project MBridge, developed by the Bank of International Settlements Innovation Hub alongside the central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. The liquidity impact. MBridge creates a multi-currency, wholesale, central bank digital currency platform. It allows participating commercial banks to achieve atomic settlement, meaning they don't need Nostro accounts. So it means the domestic currency of the sender is instantly swapped and finalized into the foreign currency of the receiver on chain. This entirely bypasses the need for intermediary clearinghouses, reducing cross-border liquidity friction. The network has scaled up to handle roughly 70 billion in transaction volume. This eliminates the need for intermediaries like Ripple and XRP and the XRPL.
That's exactly right.
That's
exactly right.
Look at the data. This is XRP scan. This is data directly from the XRP ledger. So this is XRP burned as fees.
Mike, can you zoom in just a little bit so I can see this a little bit more clearly? Thank you.
No problem. So let's take a look at some of these different metrics. So number of payments from one account to another over the past year. You can see it's bleeding off. And just recently, like today, it dipped a lot. Scroll down to here, XRP payment volume from one account to another. Trending sideways, no growth. Here, active number of users. So last October, we saw a huge spike. Since then, trending down. Big drop off today. Number of active accounts, again, dropped off today, and it's been trending downwards. This is not the sign of a growing network. Like you look at projects like Canton that are announcing, new people going live daily. You look at a lot of these other projects, Chainlink, tokenomics suck, but the project Chainlink doing amazing things. XRP burned his fees. Really, other than the Nostro Vostro issue and the cross-border remittances in non-dollar denominated pairs, this is the only bull case for XRP is the burn. And as you can see, there has been a lot less, over this past year, there's been a lot less fees being burned. Number of transactions executed, huge drop off. Been trending sideways, but huge drop off recently. But I can go on and on. I mean, it's all.
So let me ask you a question. Are there any metrics here that are going in a positive direction? Any of them?
Not a single one. Not a single
so
one.
What is this used for again? Like who uses this and for what?
The right now the only adoption and active use that I have seen has been, if you go to rwa.xyz, the XRPL has quite a bit of RWAs. I would need to dive into it and find out what.
Yeah, but that's all treasuries, right? Isn't that what that is?
I believe so.
Is it doing anything? Or did Ripple literally just buy like $1 billion of treasuries and throw it on the XRPL so that they could say that they had RWAs on their chain? Because I could see that.
Yeah. Well, they have like 3 or 4 billion of TVL, and 1 billion of that is RLUSD. So that leaves 2 or 3 billion. And if they did something like that, bought a bunch of treasuries to back, because you need a US dollar or US dollar equivalent to back your stable coin to be compliant in the US. I would need to look, but potentially they bought a bunch of treasuries like David's talking about and put them on the ledger, tokenize them, put them on the ledger to boost the amount of TVL.
I'm going to find out. I'm going to see if I can find out anyway. I'm really curious because, I would not put it past Ripple Labs to just, go out on the open market, buy a bunch of treasuries, throw it on the XRPL, launch their stablecoin product, and no one actually uses it. It seems like maybe some people used to use it on EVM chains, the RLUSD product, when there was an incentivization program going on. Like whenever you can earn, points, and those points you can redeem for a token or, something along those lines, maybe additional yield, then it can make interest rate arbitrage plays really interesting. But the moment that those incentives dry up, well, then liquidity flees. And so we've seen that with a bunch of chains, right? You saw that with Barra Chain. That was a great example. But I think you may have also seen that with RLUSD. There were a bunch of incentivization programs that were running, and I think that they've all ended. So
let's address some of these comments in the chat because welcome Triple, Triple B and Jose. If you could, really quick, Jose. XRP will make fools out of haters. Okay, we are here to have open discussions. So how exactly? State something. We're giving receipts here. We're showing you why that is not the case. Can you make money off XRP? Yes, I made a bunch of money off XRP. I bought over 40,000 XRP at like 33 or 34 cents was my average price. And as it pumped, I sold it at $2. And I've been fully transparent about that for quite a while now. And the reason is because of what I'm laying out here. I saw the writing on the wall. So let's get back to this comment here. So Triple, making their own bank, cryptos doesn't change the Nostro Vostro issue. Each bank or institution isn't going to hold another CBDC or stablecoin. So
I'm sorry for cutting you off. Yeah.
Let me finish. So a few join a circle or club that all use the same. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
That's OUSD. That's exactly what OUSD is.
Exactly. We're going to be doing a deep dive on OUSD here in the second half of the show, but go ahead, David.
So it's so interesting that he brought that up, saying that, hey, each bank or institution isn't going to hold another's stablecoin product. Well, actually, they just announced within the last couple of days that 140 of them to start are getting together, and they call this, Mike, I love it, they call this a cooperative, okay, quote unquote. Really looks like more like a cartel and a legitimate banking cartel. But the reason why all of these banks are getting together is Circle and Tether, when they buy treasuries and mint USDC and USDT, they keep a massive net interest margin. They basically earn treasury yield for free. That's why they're so freaking profitable.
They legally can't share it.
Exactly. And so now all these banks get together, they form a cartel, they create OUSD, and then you know what they do with that treasury yield? They share it with each other. So they all earn that treasury yield while also solving cross-border payments, cross-institutional payments, and all of these big institutions like Coinbase and Stripe. These are two big backers of Circle's USDC product. Yes. What if Circle's USDC product, what is the TVL, like 70 billion, 80 billion, maybe?
Something like that.
Is it 60? Let me just see real quick. USDC market cap 73. So $73.29 billion. That might sound like a lot, and it is. But if you got 140 global institutions coming together to launch OUSD, they could very, very quickly surpass that 70 billion. And so you could see OUSD maybe as a bit of a vampire attack against USDC and USDT, sucking liquidity away from those two products. What do you think? I think that could definitely happen.
It definitely could. And Triple B, I'm anything that I say, please don't take it personally. I am simply stating facts. But you said XRP is not a gas token. For the most part, that's all it is. Because with RLUSD, the dollar-to-dollar denominated transfers are facilitated by RLUSD. So all XRP is the gas token to pay for that transaction. And that starts out at 0.00001 XRP per transaction. But it can scale. But that being said, even for the non-US dollar denominated transfers, like we were talking about earlier in the show, in case you missed this, if you're transferring between illiquid pairs, so like say like the Zimbabwean dollar and the US dollar, and there's no liquidity for that. That's what we're talking about with this OUSD and what the Bank of International Settlements is building without Ripple, mind you. They are building it out to where there is no need for Nostro Vostro accounts. That liquidity will be there for these atomic settlements or instant settlements. So we're not trying to FUD Ripple and XRP here. We are giving you the facts. What you do with that is up to you. I'm not trying to FUD you out of your bags. I am trying to educate you on what XRP is, what Ripple is, and if they're being adopted or not. And
also, he makes an interesting point. And Crypto Steve, just gave him the backhand with the information. So he's saying that JP Morgan Chase uses XRP Ledger, and Crypto Steve jumps into the chat and says, well, actually, JP Morgan used it as a test, and that's exactly what happened. So if I have a press release and then there's a test of a piece of technology, what exactly was that test? Well, what was the asset, right? Ondo Finance, during that test, issued tokenized U.S. treasuries, OUSG. They issued them sitting on the public XRP ledger. Now, normally, if someone wants to redeem tokenized treasuries for actual cash across borders, it takes 2 to 3 days or something like that. T+2, T+3, because of traditional banking hours and sluggish international wire systems.
Manual processes, yeah.
Right. So Ondo initiated a redemption of those treasuries on the XRP ledger. And MasterCard's multi-token network routed the data instructions, which connected to JP Morgan's Connexus platform. Okay, that's JP Morgan's internal blockchain network. So this was the test. Why is that such a big deal? Because there are a lot of other businesses that are going after that exact same space, where instead of testing one transaction, they're running hundreds of billions of dollars a day in volume, where every metric is looking pretty good compared to, for the XRP ledger, every metric looking like it's going down and to the right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's best to know what you're talking about
Well, and Triple B again. I'm not trying to beat up on you. You're asking good questions, but
really good questions.
But they're ill-informed. So there's no need to buy.
But it's not his fault. It's not his fault that he's ill-informed. It's because there's so many people out there that just put out, content that's super misleading about XRP and a lot of other coins too.
I was right where you were at years ago when I first got into crypto, and again, XRP was my largest holding, and they used all the buzzwords, and I watched Good Morning Crypto, and I watched Zach Rector, and all the usual suspects that do nothing but talk about.
Just for the record, Mike, I never watched any of those guys because they always looked and felt gross to me.
But you know what? But not everybody is as knowledgeable about finance as you. I was a retired military dude that built a cabin in the woods.
All good.
Yeah,
all good. I'm just saying, I never watched him. Okay.
I missed out. I had a buddy that told me about Bitcoin in 2011, and I missed out. I was going through my social media one day, saw a post about Shiba Inu, and was like, "Oh yeah, that crypto stuff. Maybe I'll put $200 in it." And she pumped, and I ended up making a little bit of money. And I, being the inquisitive person I am, started deep diving into crypto, and that was like 5-6 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I got into XRP as well. But
this is a great opportunity. Next thing you'll be talking about market cap. Why don't we talk about market cap here?
We'll get to that.
Sure.
So it says you just use the platform and it interchanges the two different currencies in the transaction in each one's preference. That is incorrect. The way that the offering, Ripple Prime and the cross-border payments works for dollar denominated transactions. Uses RLUSD. It only uses XRP as the gas token. For non-dollar denominated pairs, like I said, like the illiquid pairs, like the Zimbabwe dollar and the US dollar.
And who's actually trading that stuff? Like, honestly,
I'm just saying. But it uses XRP in that case for liquidity to facilitate. And you're right, it doesn't automatically. They'll put US dollars in one end. The system automatically transfers that into XRP. And the XRP into the Zimbabwean dollar and all of that. But that being said, is it going to be used? And everything that we're showing you today, and go back and watch it again, really let it sink in. These banks, the Bank of International Settlements, this is the World Bank. This is the evil empire.
Pretty evil though.
That pulls all the strings. They're not going to give up their power. They're not going to give up the money.
Have you seen the guy who runs it, Mike?
Oh,
have you seen what he looks like?
They look like freaking Nosferatu and shit.
Oh, dude, no, he looks like he just ate another guy.
Oh no, that guy,
guy,
dude, yeah, that dude.
Hey, so will you permit me to share a chart real quick because the gentleman in the chat, Triple B 101, he made a comment about Bitcoin fools, and I got one chart to share just real quick, okay?
Well, let me address this really quick. This comment really quick before you do that.
Sure.
So it's you're trying to say that Ripple is the only one with all the licenses. No, they are not. These banks and institutions, they already have the licenses. Why do you think Ripple is selling XRP, the 1 billion tokens that are unlocked monthly? Sometimes they lock it back up or a portion of it, but a lot of the times they are funding all of these offices in New York and San Francisco, all of their salaries, all of their operating costs. When they're buying these banks, when they're buying these licenses, they are dumping XRP to do it. They are dumping on you to do it. These are the facts. Look it up yourself. I'm not making this up. Ripple, it's a well-known fact that they sell XRP to fund all of this. I'm not making this up. But go ahead, David.
Yeah. So let's take a look at XRP here, and let's take a look at XRP in Bitcoin terms. Okay, I think that's a valid comparison. Let's see, how has XRP performed in Bitcoin terms? And let's take a look at this. This is these are data not going back far enough. That's only to 2023 XRP USDT / BTC USDT. Okay, this is a little bit more data. I'm sure that we could get much, much more data here. This is only going back to 2018. But what we're looking for here is a trend. In which direction is the trend headed? Well, obviously the trend is down. So what that means is XRP has done nothing but lose value in Bitcoin terms since these data go back only to 2018. But I'd be willing to bet that it probably goes back much, much further than that. Probably all the way back to 2014. So XRP has done nothing but lose value, just like most other altcoins. You see, the thing for me is I want to be allocated to the best, and I just want to set all the rest aside. Okay, so if I can only allocate to the best, it's not XRP.
Well, let me pose this: even if this wasn't the case, even if the token was pumping, as far as not the price, but say that Ripple was getting adopted, speculative price movement aside, because that's all this is. This is all just with all of the hype around XRP in the crypto community, with the amount of people that have FOMO'd into XRP when they saw it go from like 34 cents all the way up to like $3 and change. All of the mind share that it gets, that's what's moving this price. Because if you look at it, David wanted to latch on to the market cap. Let's look at that real quick. So the market cap is, damn it, let's go back to here. So the market cap of XRP right now is, where are you at?
Ridiculously big for no reason.
$68 billion.
Crazy.
Based on what? If you look at it from a pure valuation standpoint, and the way that businesses are valued, is you look at the fees and revenue that are generated by that company, and there is little to no fees or revenue being generated by the XRPL, by Ripple, for any of their services. So this is highly overvalued, and as soon as people cue in on value accrual and how and that's why we came up with the trifecta, because it's basically an old model to evaluate a company that we added to as far as the value accrual of the token to modernize it for crypto. So if you're looking at a company, I mean, watch Shark Tank, watch any of those, and you listen to them when they're talking. Like some of the first questions that they ask after they give their little pitch is, what was your sales this past year? How many units did you move? What was your profit margin on those? What's your manufacturing costs? They're digging in and they're finding out how much money are you actually making after operating costs. Because if you're asking for $500,000 for 10% of your company, then that means that your company's worth what? $5 million. Is that right?
It's the multiple. Yeah.
That basically your company's worth $5 million. So if your sales doesn't support that, then they're going to say, no, I'm not giving you 500,000. I'm going to give you 50,000 because you're not valuating your company properly. And
right. I mean, these are traditional metrics. These are the metrics that we use to evaluate these different coins, right? Like, this is how it's done. There is no value in speculation. Eventually, that will bleed away to zero. The value is in the cash flows and the tokenomics and the user adoption. And XRP has none of those. So,
Triple B. I bet you that I could tell you without asking what channels that you've been watching. You're saying it's not a gas fee. It's value dependent on the amount of value that's being used on the platform. No, it's not. The token, if there is no value accrual, it has nothing to do with the amount of TVL that's on the chain. It has to do with the fees and the revenue being generated by the company, in this case, Ripple. And the XRP token, the tokenomics, would need to have a very serious burn mechanism put into it. And I'm not talking about the fee burn, because it's a super cheap fee to do a transaction. I'm talking about like hype, where hype, the reason it's been going up and to the right is because it has 100% of the fees generated on the Hyperliquid platform, the DEX, goes to buy back automatically, buy back and burn the token, making it deflationary. It is an indirect way that token holders share in the profitability of the company. XRP has none of that. The fees that are burned, and I did the math, max supply, 100 billion is the max supply. To burn just 10% of the supply, maximum throughput for the XRP ledger is 1,500 transactions per second. The base transaction fee is 0.00001 XRP, or 10 drops. This is off Ripple's website. Scenario 1, we assume the network is running at a constant full throttle, but the fee somehow remains locked at the minimum base rate of 10 drops per transaction. So the burn rate per second with that 1,500 TPS is 0.015 XRP a second. So the burn rate daily would be 1,296 XRP a day. And if you go back to here, you can see it's not even that. Right now, it's at like 300-400 a day. So,
you know what this reminds me of, Mike? As you're going back through these metrics, it reminds me of my experience as an end user, as a retail end user, using the XRP ledger natively, operating natively on XRPL.
Yeah.
My experiences operating natively on XRPL have been that it is much, much more difficult to onboard, and that there are very, very few dApps. So, you know, as far as like a vibrant ecosystem, I just don't see it. So that's important, right? You know, if you're
so David, how long do you think it would take at max TPS? How long do you think it would take to burn 10% of the supply?
Max TPS. What is the max TPS over there? 1,500. Okay. Man, I know that I've heard you say this before, Mike. A couple thousand years. How long is it?
21,125 years to burn 10% of the supply. That's at the 10 drop rate. You know, it can scale and it makes a difference. But that gives you an idea. It would take massive adoption, and we're not seeing it. Nobody is adopting the XRPL. The only TVL and the only activity we're seeing is with RWAs. And we need to dive into what exactly is being tokenized on the XRPL, because like David said, it could just be the treasuries that they're required to hold to be in compliance with their stablecoin, RLUSD. That's
yeah. I mean, it could very well be that. I wasn't able to find much information about who's actually buying these RWAs on the XRPL. But what I can tell you is that Open Eden is the issuer. So Open Eden, originated these RWAs on the XRPL, and Ripple Labs bought $10 million from Open Eden. So okay. small purchase.
Okay.
Yeah, but so what? How many chains are going after this market of tokenized treasuries, and also what really is the value of just having a treasury bond tokenized on some random chain? How many of these chains have tokenized treasuries living on them right now? What does that matter if you can't do anything with it? You see, that's the whole problem with the lack of liquidity, the lack of dApps, because on XRPL, can you easily borrow against your US Treasury assets? Are there money markets on the XRP ledger? No. Are there any dApps to speak of at all? Or is this all just kind of theoretical and, maybe one day there might be a partnership that might do something? That's what it seems like to me.
No, and I would tend to agree. And in Triple B, if no stable coin is needed on the and it's not a platform, I'm assuming that you're talking about the XRPL, which is the ledger. Why did Ripple create RLUSD if it's if a stable coin isn't needed? Why are banks and institutions, why are they coming out with OUSD? Why does USDC exist? Why does USDT exist? You need to have stable coins to on-ramp liquidity into DeFi and crypto. You need to have a fiat, representation, digital representation. It's the same thing as RWAs, stocks and all these different things that everyone, real estate that everyone's trying to tokenize. It's needed to be because it's the whole purpose of this technology is to digitize illiquid assets. Instead of holding a dollar in your hand, you digitize it and make it RLUSD or USDC. Because if I wanted to hand this to David, I'd have to get on a plane and fly to Florida. Instead,
I accept Satoshis, Mike. You ever thought about that? You could send me some sats.
I forgot how it works, so you need to send me some. So so the whole premise of this use case of all crypto is the digitization of illiquid assets, so that I can send it to David with a couple of clicks of some buttons. So you're wrong. Stable coins 100% are necessary. XRP is collateral. We covered this. I mean, you guys are using all of the buzzwords and all of the things that I heard for years. And if you want to go back and watch the rest of the show, we addressed this. XRP is only used as a bridge asset, not collateral, a bridge asset between non-US dollar denominated pairs. I can't make this any easier. If you're going if you're going from dollar to dollar, if you're just in the US, you're just doing it. You can just use RLUSD or any other stable coin.
And I got to make another point here about the retail facing dApps here and the applications and the wallets on the XRP Ledger ecosystem. They are horrible. So I've used so many different wallets. I've got a collection of hardware wallets. I've used just about every hot wallet that exists for maybe like the top 25 layer 1 chains. And I got to say, Mike, XRP Ledger, there's a couple of wallets that you can use. And I'm talking about the desktop ones. It's Gem, and then there's another one called, I think, Crossmark. And then you've got on your phone, you've got Zaman, I think it's called, with an X. And the way that these things work, there's a big difference in user experience and security depending on which wallet you're using. So the way that you set up and create a new wallet on Crossmark and Gem is very insecure. It's very insecure, man. These are just, and the ecosystems, a bunch of garbage. I agree.
Dude,
so
listen to this. Unified settlement layers and interoperability networks. And this is going to point to a project that we're bullish on here, because every bank is building its own private chain, creates new digital silos. Remember that, silos. The market is aggressively deploying interoperability solutions to stitch these siloed networks together. So basically finality, the peer-to-peer wholesale network backed by a consortium of over a dozen global banks, including Goldman Sachs, Barclays, and UBS. Finality addresses fragmentation by enabling real-time programmatic settlement using tokenized cash held in accounts at central banks. By matching the security of central bank money with blockchain speed, it eliminates credit risk at the exact point of settlement. The common fabric strategy, the major infrastructure providers are shifting towards a data mesh or data fabric approach. Swift has re-engineered its framework to act as an interoperability layer. Again, using Chainlink and Linea, not Ripple. proving that traditional messaging networks can seamlessly orchestrate payments between public blockchains, tokenized bank ledgers, and legacy systems without forcing institutions to completely overhaul their current internal compliance workflows. Now, remember where I said siloed networks. There's a project we talk about all the time here. Not saying run out and buy it, but facts are facts. Canton Network is specifically built for this use case. And it's why you have major banks that aren't just in a partnership. They haven't signed an MOU. They are actively using the Canton Network for interoperability, because Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, all these different banks, they have their siloed networks. They don't want full transparency between these different institutions. They want to maintain their privacy, but they want interoperability. They need to be able to move value. Canton has this in spades. And if you look at who it is that is actually running validators and super validators on the Canton Network, it's major banks and institutions, JP Morgan Chase and the like. And that's a fact. And if they were going to use Ripple and XRP, where's that?
I want to speak to that real quick. So take a look at this, Mike. I'm trying to, just as you've been speaking, dig up some dApps, like, actual stuff you can do on the XRP ledger, because it's always so difficult to find, like, any dApps on XRP ledger, because they don't exist. That's why they're hard to find. And there's no liquidity to do anything over there anyway. So I'm over here looking at, this is direct from the horse's mouth. This is xrpl.org. This is about their software ecosystem, or lack thereof. So it's going to give you some information about it, right? Stack levels, core servers, whatever. I'm looking for dApps, and unfortunately on the XRPL, there are very few dApps. So, if you want to trade on the XRPL natively as retail, well, I was able to find this. It's called Sologenic. I think that they just changed their name from Sologenic to TX. But this is, a retail-facing XRP ledger DEX is what it looks like to me. But notice this is a Bitcoin RLUSD pair. And you see the problem with this chart here? You know what this signifies? This chart and the way that this looks, what this tells me immediately, and when you take a look at the volume, is that there's no volume here. And look at the book. There's no, you can't trade this. No. So what can we do over here? Well, it looks like if I take a look at these market selector, there are, I guess there are markets on here, but
they can't even provide liquidity on their own DEXs.
Right?
How are they going to provide liquidity for cross-border remittances?
I have no idea, but I'm looking at these pairs, and there are prices associated with these pairs, but there's also no price movement. So that tells me that these prices aren't real. If I go over here to USDC pairs, okay, it's giving me a price here. Let's click through. Is there a book? Can I trade this? No, you can't. There's no liquidity here at all.
This comment, Triple B. Sorry, you have no idea what's coming in the next few years, dude. I heard that 5-6 years ago when the court case between the SEC and Ripple. As soon as that was settled, XRP was going to the moon. Didn't happen. I can name half a dozen other freaking instances where XRP was supposed to go to the moon. Never did. It says this posting you will try to hide from. No, I will firmly admit if somehow I'm wrong, I will firmly admit that I was wrong. I honestly, I do not see a way that I'm not. So close-minded, you are in a cult. What cult? We are stating facts. The facts we are presenting here are data from XRP's own DEXs, the XRPL, XRP scan. It is data from the XRPL. All of the things that we're stating are in the deep dive that we did on the Node.pro. Our cited sources are from Ripple's own white paper. You claimed that we'd never read it. We cited it in our deep dive that we did. We cite Ripple. We cite credible, what do you call them, primary sources?
Primary sources.
We are giving you the alpha here. If you choose to snap out of the cult, that is the question. Because I did. I was in the cult. I was in the XRP cult. Again, I was watching all the usual suspects, all the ones that all they do is talk about XRP. Daily, I would drink my tea or my coffee in the morning, and I would watch them hype me up about how I was going to get rich on XRP. I got lucky. We got that pump to like $3 and change. I sold all my XRP at $2 and made a good chunk of money. And I'm glad I did, because now we're back down to $1. But you really need to stop listening to those channels. You are in a cult. And you're all of the things that you're saying, that the arguments that you're putting up, I've debunked them all. If you go back and you watch this unbiasedly, if you go back and watch this with a clear, unemotional head, and you look at what we're pointing out and citing sources, it's irrefutable.
And Mike, I'm looking at this Sologenic DEX because I was unable to find another DEX or AMM trading interface that exists natively on the XRP ledger. I think that there's a native DEX on XRP ledger that Ripple maintains, but yeah, give me a link to the native XRPL DEX, and then I'll connect to it with one of my wallets and we can take a look at it. But this is Sologenic, and this is kind of interesting. You can launch tokens on here. So, there's a token launch pad, right? So I'm taking a look. This is native on XRPL. This is Bear, which is, someone's, whatever, their meme coin or whatever, paired with XRP. So this is a liquidity pool on the XRP ledger on Sologenic DEX. And so what does that mean? Well, if we take a look at pool liquidity right here, if there are 48 million Bear tokens paired with 108,000 XRP, well, then the TVL for this pool, we can figure that out. X times Y equals K. So if I just take that 108,000 XRP, then 108,000, what's XRP trading for right now, Mike? $1 something?
$1, just roughly $1. It's like $1.09 or something like that.
Oh, okay. So let's just call it $1 to keep it even. So, this means that there's 100K in dollars on one side of the pool. That must therefore mean that you got 100K in Bear tokens on the other side of the pool. That's how this works. That X times Y equals K keeps the US dollar amounts on each side of the pool even.
That's what provides liquidity for swaps.
Right. So that means that, someone launched this Bear token, and yet I'm taking a look here at the volume chart, and it says over 3 months, there's been 30 XRP in volume on this. Like, how? That's why I think that this is bullshit. I think this is fake, man.
Well, and if it is true, that's stagnant liquidity. That's $100,000 of XRP that isn't moving. It's not doing anything. It's not generating fees. It's not.
Yeah, but this is very unusual, though. Like, my point is, I've for a living provided liquidity. Okay. And I no longer do, because now I know a hell of a lot more about liquidity provision. But because I did that for a living, I know a lot about it. I wrote the book on it, man. Literally published a book, a manual about how to provide liquidity and learn how to use these DEXs. So
JVXRP.
But you never see this. Mike, you never see this. You never see in a random pool with zero volume over 90 days, that there's 200K. You never see 200K just sitting in a pool with zero volume. Okay, that's very highly suspicious. Yeah. I call bullshit on this.
Yeah. So JVXRP, what crypto do you recommend? We don't recommend any projects. We educate here. We don't hype, we don't FUD, we don't shill. We just give you the facts, and what you do with that is up to you. What is some of the projects that I'm buying? I'm buying hype. Hype has been going up and to the right while the rest of the market dumps because of its superior tokenomics, because the token has value capture. The 100% of the fees that are generated by the platform are burned, making the hype token deflationary. I'm bullish on Canton because I see that they are getting massive adoption. Just the one use case that's already on it, that's active right now, is Broadridge with 400 billion in repo market, and that's just the beginning. Here in like 4 or 5 days, we have the DTCC is doing a soft launch that's going to generate more fees, and there's a bunch more that are lined up, just about to go live. Not in an agreement with or thinking about building on. They're actually going live, and for any of the fees, and Canton is the highest earning crypto project in all of crypto. It earns $2 to $3 million currently of fees, 100% of which, you might see a trend happening here, 100% of which are burned. Currently, however, the CC token is still inflationary. But with increased network usage, like the DTCC soft launch, full launch in October if all goes well, again, we're very unemotional here.
So you know what would be valuable for the gentlemen in the chat here who are misunderstanding what XRP is and also suffering from some cognitive biases. I think what would be really valuable for them is if they hopped on over to the node.pro and went into the Learn tab right here, where all of our courses are free, okay? I built all of this material. It's all free. We give it away. I think what they would really get some value from is if you hop into the Learn tab and then you go to the Investor Mindset course. I also turn this into a book if you want to buy it on Amazon and read it, a physical copy of it. I think that can be valuable too. But hop on in here and take a look at in the advanced psychology lessons, cognitive biases in DeFi markets. And you go through lesson 5 here. This is lesson 5. It's all about cognitive biases. So you can, play the audio podcast, listen to this for 17 minutes. You can play the video content, learn about cognitive biases in DeFi, or you could just read through the written content. And if you like pictures, maybe you don't like to read. Maybe you don't know how to read. I'm not judging. You can look at the pictures,
Hey, David, in the chat, who is it? Somebody mentioned, I want to give credit where credit's due. Oh, Adam said, completely false volume numbers. Try using First Ledger for data on the XRPL. Could you look into firstledger.net and see what you can find as far as data? Because again, we're not here to like FUD anybody out of their bag. We're just here to educate. So I appreciate you, Adam, pointing us in this direction. Let's see what it has to show.
100%. Let me see what I can find out about First Ledger. Well, it looks like it's a dApp built on the XRPL.
Do you want to bring it up?
Yeah, let me see if I can get a link to it. It says that it's got a popular Telegram integrated trading platform. Oh, I love Telegram. So let's see. Give me link. Sometimes
when you look at that, so JVXRP, we're not scared of the technology. It's not FUD. Again, these are facts. We are quoting on Ripple. We our deep dives. We cite all of our sources. I don't know how else to state this to you. We are using Ripple's own words on how the XRP token is used, how RLUSD is used, what partnerships they actually have that are live generating fees and revenue, which are almost non-existent. We are giving you facts. It's up to you if you want to listen. I don't care. If you want to hold XRP, freaking hold XRP. Are you going to make money? Maybe. Like I said, it pumped from 34 cents to $3 and change while I was holding it. But I used that as my escape pump. I sold mine because I saw what was happening. And you're saying that sounds like we love Bitcoin. I'm not a huge Bitcoin maxi.
I love Bitcoin.
I know David does, and I own some, but I'm definitely not a Bitcoin maxi because our deep dive, it actually did not do very well.
No, okay? It didn't. Look, Bitcoin's got problems.
It doesn't have value accrual. You are simply hoping that the price goes up. You are buying Bitcoin hoping that somebody else will buy it from you at a higher price than you bought it for. That's it. There's, and like David talks about, until on mainnet, until there's, DeFi, and until there's, some way to generate revenue on the chain, there's some serious issues. You have a lot of heavy Bitcoin miners that are switching over to processing data for AI because it's becoming because it's more profitable than mining Bitcoin. And that's a huge issue because it basically what it means is it's becoming less and less secure.
Oh, brother, look, Adam6809 in the chat. Man, you really got to go through the courses, the free courses, man. Start with the investor mindset course. That's the one to start with. Because if you're going to make a statement like you just did, Bitcoin is heavily speculative, you say, compared to an asset like XRP. And then he goes on to say, you can't deny that. Oh, man, to make a statement like that.
Share your screen with the first ledger.
Yeah, so I found it, but I can't access it with my VPN turned on, it looks like.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to bring it up, Mike, firstledger.net. I joined the Telegram, though. And, it says that I've got to, in order to be able to trade, I've got to basically, initialize my XRP ledger account with one XRP. I refuse to hold XRP, Mike. I will never do it.
So we got leaderboard. I'm not seeing where there's any place to look at data. I mean, this is really the only thing, and it says platform activity over the last 90 days. It's down and to the right. Take
a look at pools. Can you click on pools and zoom in just a little bit, Mike, so we can take a look at these liquidity pools? Because this is something that I am expert in, and we'll be able to detect bullshit if it exists here. So.
Almost no TVL. There's like a
okay. So I can barely see it. So can you filter by TVL? So if you click on the TVL button, it is okay. So the largest pool is 190K XRP. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is that? Can you click through to that? Is there any way?
That's roughly $190,000.
So I'm curious. Why is Triple B saying, "Oh my God, Sologenic LMAO"? I'm just curious why, but let's take a look here. So we're looking at this pool, and it says APR 32%, okay, and 24-hour volume 37K XRP, and that's against the TVL figure of 190K XRP. So this is XRP paired with what is the other token here? R code. Yeah, okay, so if there's 190K TVL in this pool. And what's the fee tier? 0.05 or 0.5? The fee tier is
0.05. Excuse me, 0.5.
0.5. Okay, that's a big fat fee tier. 0.5 is big.
Well, that's how it's getting a 24-hour volume of $37,000.
Actually, Mike, that's how it's getting a displayed APR of 32% on volume that is lesser than the TVL. So usually what you want to see is volume in low fee tier pools. You want to see volume that is much, much greater than the TVL in the pool. But if the fee tier is really big and wide, and 0.5% is like almost meme coin width, if the fee tier is really, really big, then you can drive a big APR with relatively low volume against small TVL. And so that's what's going on with this pool. Can you scroll down a little bit, Mike? I want to see if there's anything else. Okay, pool composition, 50-50, of course. Let's see, what's the swap transactions? What are people swapping here? And what's the size that they're swapping? So look at the size of the XRP swaps in this pool.
1.4, 1.8 XRP, 2 XRP, 3 XRP.
Who's doing this? There's no transaction volume here. Mike, if you could scroll up a little ways. I know that there was a tab up. And see what says volume?
I don't want to waste. We're already over the first hour. I don't want to waste too much time on this.
The only reason is because you see where it says instead of TVL, can you click on volume in this pool here, where it says just above 190K XRP. There's TVL, price, and volume. Down a little bit, down.
Oh, gotcha.
Right there. Okay, so let's just take a look at the volume. There's no volume.
No.
So that fee APR number is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
So this is a fugazi. This is a fugazi pool.
Well, and that's not exclusive to this platform. You got to be careful about claimed APR.
Oh no, that's in general.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that I can look at this stuff and I can tell you whether that fee APR is legit or not. It is not. So it's not just this. What's the name of this thing again? What is the name of this website, Mike? It's First Ledger.
Firstledger.net.
Yeah, so First Ledger. So the liquidity pools on First Ledger are bullshit. The liquidity pools on Sologenic look like they're just fake.
Yeah.
And so these are the 2 dApps on XRP Ledger. Like, do you guys remember? How long have you guys been in crypto for? Because I bought Bitcoin in 2012. Okay, really back in 2011, but started to buy it a little bit more in 2012. So I've been involved with this space for well over a decade. And
actually, Triple B, it's kind of funny. David actually made a bunch of money on providing liquidity in pools like that we just looked at, providing liquidity for Fartcoin when it was going parabolic and everybody was making money on.
You should read my book on liquidity provision, man. I literally wrote a book on liquidity provision. It's on Amazon.
David makes his living off of trading.
And Adam, we're not picking bullshit tokens to analyze. Literally went to the 2 dexes on XRP Ledger and picked the top pools in each of them. Like the number 1 pools in Sologenics and the number 1 pool in First Ledger. And both of the number 1 pools are fake, man. Yeah. They're not real. This is not real. It's a fugazi chain. And,
So Jimawood, this is the first comment I saw. So I'm guessing that you haven't been watching since the beginning. Please go back and watch. But you're saying read the white papers on BIS for newborns. That's Bank for International Settlements. Fully aware. You chat about nothing because you're uneducated on blockchain. You are barking up the wrong tree here. David makes his living, in DeFi. And he uses liquidity pools. He's intimately familiar with everything to do with blockchain. I've been at this for 5-6 years. I'm nowhere near his level. I was in the top 2% of XRP holders. I know everything there is to know about XRP, Ripple, the XRPL, the lawsuit with the SEC. I can go on and on and on. I am not uneducated about this topic. If there is a project that I know the most about, it is this project. Because for like 5 years was sit in echo chambers like Good Morning Crypto, like Zach Rector, all the usual suspects for like 4 or 5 years. I sat in there like most of you, I can tell. All of you listen to them too. And I sat in there and day after day after day, I listened to all the buzzwords and I watched the narrative change when the lawsuit was settled. XRP was going to the moon. They won the lawsuit. They threw a party in New York. Brad Garlinghouse and Zach Rector and all those people, Good Morning Crypto. I watched the live streams where they were at the party and having a great time and celebrating. What did the price of the token do? Nothing. Every time that we're told that it's going to go to the moon, it doesn't. And then out of nowhere, we got a pump from like 34 cents to $3 and change, with HBAR and all the ISO tokens, but they've all given it back because there's no adoption. HBAR, XLM, XLM is getting some tokenization done on it. The XRPL is getting some tokenization on it, to be determined what that exactly is. But
yeah, that's the thing. I can't quite tell what the actual use case for this chain is.
I want to make this, let's do like our final thoughts because we need to get into the deep dives. This is so important. Please do yourself a favor. If you want to hold XRP, we don't care. I do not care. Feel free to hold nothing but meme coins. It doesn't change my life a bit. We are here to educate you. We have cited all of our sources. These are not personal opinions.
And our sources are primary. Like, that's a big deal. You know, people will, and the SEC.
Yeah, they're from official sources. You know, these aren't ex posts. This isn't our personal opinions. My personal opinion is formed by these facts and why I'm trying to warn you all.
And so let me just address what Gemma Wood is saying in the chat just real quick. So she's saying that there is some connection between a white paper or the Bank for International Settlements and this XRP token. I'm sorry to inform you, Gemma Wood 1478, but unfortunately, there is no connection between whatever white paper you read, whatever some big bank is saying, and value accrual to the XRP token. There is no connection between these two things. If you're holding XRP, well, then you don't benefit from any potential partnership that Ripple Labs might make. Okay, there's no value accrual mechanism to the XRP token. So you're basically holding like a meme coin, and you're saying that because some bank somewhere said something good, maybe, then number go up for your coin. That's not how this stuff works. So that's why we focus on the trifecta, because you need a real use case, real user adoption. You need that chain, that token, that business to generate real revenues. And those revenues need to accrue to token holders. So you need value accrual, you need users and user growth, and you need the thing to make money. Okay, so if you don't have those three together, then you don't have a token that's going to go up and to the right. You've got some type of meme.
Exactly. Yes, you can get speculative pumps. That's what we saw when XRP went from 34 cents and HBAR and XLM and all of those pumped.
That's what they've done since then.
Yeah, but that's
and how have they performed in Bitcoin terms, down and to the right.
Those are speculative pumps. Those are driven off of hype. Those are not real prices.
And what JVXRP is posting in the chat, these tokens, all of them, these are all great examples of tokens that have very, very poor tokenomics, except for Canton. Canton has some pretty excellent tokenomics.
And I don't know about ENS. I won't comment on
I do. Okay. I do. ENS is a DAO. That's the Ethereum name service. It's the DAO token. Okay. And the funny thing about ENS is that the value of the liquid assets that the DAO holds seem to be nearly double that of the market cap of the ENS token. And so that's a big problem for governance tokens just as a whole. Because if the DAO owns assets, you saw this with Bonk the other day, the Bonk DAO. Some guy decided, I want to buy $4 million of Bonk so that I can vote to allocate the entire treasury to myself. And he was able to hit a nice little, what was it, a 5x ROI? He turned 4 million into 20 million through that was a legal mechanism, man. Hey, so what are you going to do? But the rest of them, XRP, Ondo, XLM, HBAR, XDC, those are all valueless. I don't see, because they don't meet our trifecta. So you want to hop into some deep dive research here, Mike?
Yeah, let's do the deep dive. This is going to be the last one because we've got to get to the deep dives. We're probably going to end up going over on our time, but that's okay. Safe take. I can see them using XRP as a token to their stock at some point. No. There was a whole court case on this.
It's illegal.
Ripple spent hundreds of millions of dollars fighting the SEC because they didn't want XRP to be a security. That was the whole reason for that court case. And there's no way that they're going to attach XRP to a stock because that would make XRP a security.
Agreed. Not going to happen. In fact, illegal. So let's take a look here. Which one do you want to go through first? Do you want to take a look at Pump Fund or OUSD?
So that we can round out, like this conversation about how banks are creating their own rails. They're using projects like Canton for interoperability, but they're creating their own siloed networks and their own stable coins that they're going to use amongst themselves because they're fighting crypto. They've used Elizabeth Warren to do it, legislatively.
Oh, Pocahontas.
They've lost that. They've lost that fight, and so they're shifting their tactics. And what they're doing is they're rushing to build out infrastructure and stable coins to where they can hold on to the power and hold on to the yield generating aspect of this system that they built. And again, go through DeFi University, our 100% free course. I'm not shilling it something.
Not just one course, series of courses.
Well, specifically, how the parts, the beginner courses
about money. Yeah, the DeFi high school.
Yeah, where it talks about the fiat and how the banks operate and how they
so just so that everyone knows, for a couple of months, Mike and I put on a live show where we ran through the DeFi high school lessons. And so we went through the DeFi high school, all the lessons live. Okay. So that's definitely worth a watch. I think that probably lives in the channel. So let's take a look at this. We've got some content on OUSG.
On June 30th, 2026, a consortium of global corporations announced the launch of OpenUSD, or OUSD. Managed by an independent entity called Open Standard, the initiative is designed to dismantle the barriers of traditional cross-border settlement using a new dollar-pegged infrastructure. The scale of the project is driven by its founding coalition. Over 140 corporations, including major commercial banks, payment processors, and technology giants, have signed on to distribute and support the asset. To analyze this infrastructure, we must first separate the ticker symbol from existing technologies. The 2026 OpenUSD shares an acronym with Pixar's open-source 3D graphics framework, a framework with zero utility in digital finance. This comparison isolates the 2026 OpenUSD from the 2020 Origin Dollar, a decentralized finance stablecoin that also uses the OUSD ticker. While the 2020 protocol is backed by other crypto assets and generates yield through automated lending, the 2026 asset operates on a different model. The 2026 OpenUSD is a fiat-backed instrument. Its reserves consist strictly of physical cash deposits and short-term U.S. Treasury instruments held at regulated commercial banking institutions. While first-generation stablecoins demonstrated that public ledgers could settle value 24/7, their single-issuer models created friction for enterprises. Moving capital at scale meant facing high minting fees, strict volume caps, and zero strategic influence. OpenUSD is...
Gotcha.
So what they were just talking about right there was what we've been talking about with XRP, the friction. That it was the whole narrative. Cross-border payments, cross-border remittances, that friction, the Nostro Vostro accounts that you're always hearing about. This is what we're talking about. They came up with OUSD as a fix, just like Swift. Ripple was going to replace Swift. Swift used Chainlink and Linea to update their systems to make, to modernize them. Banks and institutions are doing the same thing, and they're not using Ripple to do it. Keep going.
Not designed as a proprietary payment product. Instead, it is an attempt to re-engineer the digital fiat stack as a shared, open infrastructure for the global economy. In legacy stablecoin models, the issuer retains the entire interest income earned on the cash and treasury reserves.
That is the important point. This is the reason why they've launched OUSD, because Tether and Circle, they are the single issuer. And guess what? That means that they retain all of the cash flows from the treasuries that they own when they mint USDT and USDC. And so what this cartel of 140 banks to start is saying is, we want that cash flow. And so we're going to work together so we don't have to give away that net interest margin to Circle and Tether.
Well, it's not just Circle and Tether. Ripple's RLUSD.
Right. It's going to go bye-bye.
Any other stable coin.
We'll be able to compete with this.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're not just picking on XRP here. When it comes to the stable coin, this is all stable coins. When it comes to cross-border payments and things like that, OUSD is the chosen stable coin for banks and institutions.
Oh, dude, I love these comments in the chat. It just puts such a smile on my face.
Well, no, dude, but this is amazing. I love that people are coming here, and initially, they might, be thinking that we're fudding, but just like the one gentleman, I think it was JVXRP, that pointed out, we are open-minded. Please, if you have something and you think that you can, prove us wrong and you can cite your source, we are here to learn too.
All you got to do is watch the content, because we cite all of our sources and we use primary sources in our source material. So all you got to do is watch the content and make up your mind for yourself. Don't allow us to influence you.
No.
You've got to make your own decisions. Yeah. And if you're coming into the chat saying stuff like XRP will rule the financial world, well, what that tells me is that you've likely been consuming content from the multitude of influencers that are out there just shilling XRP. And so I think you would do really well to educate yourself a little bit, and you can watch videos. Everyone likes videos, right? Just watch the videos.
Well, and let me,
a high interest.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Point out about a lot of those influencers is they might appear unbiased, but they are talking about XRP because it gets views. Yes. Could we, come on here and just tell you everything bullish about XRP, and
I couldn't do that. I could never do that
because we're about integrity here.
Because it's a lie.
Well, but do this: eliminate the FUD or the hype or whatever. Watch those channels that you usually watch that are hyping XRP. How often do they cite their source, and how often is the source the
press release? So their sources are usually press releases or not cited at all.
Yeah.
So we cite what are referred to as primary sources.
And how deep do they go? So a perfect example is the other day I was watching one, and they were talking about that Ripple Prime was on the board, or not the board, but on a consortium for the DTCC. And they were, they put all the thumbnails out where this changes everything. The usual.
Oh, right. You always see that same type of, and we went through that in the DeFi high school. That's a lot of the stuff on social media that you really want to try to avoid.
Yeah. So basically, they were trying to claim that, Ripple Prime is going to be used for the DTCC. This is going to send XRP to the moon. There is over 50 different people currently in that group, and the DTCC, I played it. Like an actual video from a representative from the DTCC. They said that anyone can join that. If they're going to if the DTCC will use them is a whole nother story. To date, the only chains that the DTCC has announced that they're actually doing anything with is here in 4 days. They're doing a soft launch with Canton, and they're talking about, or I think they might have done a little something with XLM.
No, they haven't. So okay. what they're planning to do is a test with XLM Stellar in 2027.
Oh,
that's the plan. Because XLM can't support the transactions right now. It doesn't work. Okay. Which, of course, yeah. So let's
keep going.
Yeah. Let's play this. We got 30 minutes.
Interest rate environment, this allows a single company to generate billions in revenue, while the partners driving the actual transaction volume receive no economic return from the float.
Right.
Open Standards' economic primitive is reserve yield sharing. The protocol aggregates reserve yields. After a small management fee, the vast majority of interest revenue flows back to distribution partners. The architecture utilizes zero-fee, uncapped minting and redemption, allowing partners to move liquidity without toll gates. This zero-fee structure removes the margin erosion faced by high-volume corporate treasuries and merchant acquirers when moving liquidity into on-chain environments. Decision-making is handled by a board composed of representatives from the signatory companies. This collaborative governance prevents...
So I just want to comment on what Crispy said in the chat real quick, that some of these channels cover astrology and the Chinese zodiac. I think you're probably better off following astrology than a lot of these XRP influencer guys.
Dude, I'll call out a specific channel because, again, I used to watch them every morning. Good Morning Crypto. Good Evening Crypto. They actually played a clip of ours and called us unprofessional because we were.
It was thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
No, it was funny, but I can't tell you how many times that they were talking about astrology and full moons and how it was going to affect crypto. And it's, if anybody out there is, I'm sorry, I have to have data. I have to have facts. I am not going to base, no matter how successful, I'm not going to base my trading off of full moons and the lunar cycle.
Man, who would do something like that? It's like, it just sounds so stupid.
Unilateral policy changes and ensures the protocol remains a neutral utility rather than a proprietary tool. By transforming idle stablecoin balances into an active revenue line, Open Standard aligns the financial incentives of its distribution network with a circulating supply of the token. Scaling to institutional transaction volumes requires a foundation in federal law. OpenUSD is built to comply with the 2025 Genius Act, the primary regulatory framework for payment stablecoins in the United States.
Okay, so I just want to make a comment on the Genius Act real quick, because we are getting screwed as retail. So these banks that are essentially creating a new income stream for themselves as they see, that they have to upgrade their financial infrastructure to Web3, now they're launching this stablecoin product as a cartel so that they can capture that net interest margin without losing it. But that's what we should be earning. Like, if we're holding a stablecoin balance, let's say that you're holding an OUSD stablecoin balance in your Web3 mullet account at JP Morgan or at Wells Fargo, whatever, and you're holding OUSD in your account there, you should be earning that treasury yield.
Yeah.
That's what you should be earning. The only reason why you're not earning that treasury yield of 4-point-something% is because it has been made illegal. Okay. So this Genius Act made it illegal for retail to earn that treasury yield, which you should be earning. And it's like only half of the distance to just breaking even on the devaluation through inflation of the US dollar. Because if you believe, like my guy, if you believe that, inflation is only at 3%, man, have you bought food recently?
Yeah.
Or energy or shelter? Inflation's not 3%. Inflation is above 5%, 7%.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, in the past 10 years, price of groceries have doubled. The price of almost everything has doubled.
It's actually since 2020. Since 2020, it's really accelerated.
Oh shit!
But, so this legislation here, Mike, this Genius Act, everyone, especially in the XRP community, they always point to, Genius Act is going to do this and Clarity Act is going to do that. Well, maybe, but what I see so far is that the Genius Act was written by banks for banks, to protect banks. This is not good for us.
Watch Jamie Dimon come unhinged, when he's talking about the Clarity Act. Just recently, I watched an interview where he was going off about basically Coinbase and DeFi and being able to earn yield, and he was losing his shit because they know that if there's ways for us to earn the yield that David's talking about, that we're going to find places like Coinbase, we're going to find places like DeFi protocols that we can store our state, like David does. He uses was it EtherFi?
I love EtherFi.
Yeah, he uses EtherFi as his bank, and so he earns yield on his stable coins. He earns off of his purchases using his card. I mean, he is 100% decoupled from the traditional finance system. He lives in crypto. We're not just passive observers of this industry. Like, David makes his living in DeFi and crypto.
And I've done so for the last 5 years. And I bought Bitcoin in 2012. I've been an options trader since 2010. Like, I live this.
We're not passive observers. This is my full-time gig. This is David's full-time gig.
I just do the YouTube because I enjoy it. I love learning this stuff. I love chatting with Mike every day.
Yeah.
And, if at some point...
We learn a ton. Sometimes... Yeah. So thank you for the comments in the chat.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that in a condescending way.
No.
This is a channel where we love opposing thoughts. In fact, tonight on the Red Pill, we get drunk and
all right, so are we going to have Paulo on today?
Yeah, Paulo's going to be on.
Awesome.
And we're going to be talking about those flop cameras.
Oh man, and look, there is an argument to be made in both, on both sides there. In favor of those cameras and of course against them. That'll be an interesting conversation for sure. You want to continue on with the content here, Mike?
Yeah, please.
The Act provides a critical jurisdictional carve-out. It clarifies that compliant payment stablecoins are neither securities nor commodities, while mandating that issuers operate as financial institutions subject to the Bank Secrecy Act. This designation triggers strict requirements, must maintain anti-money laundering programs, verify customer identities, and integrate real-time federal sanction screening.
Okay, so check that out. You know what that means? These are CBDCs in disguise. That's exactly what this means. Circle and Tether products, because they can be frozen and must comply with, restrictions and regulations in different jurisdictions, but, mainly focusing on the US jurisdiction. That makes these products CBDCs, okay? They've been regulated into becoming CBDCs. So when everyone's saying, oh, well, we can't have a CBDC issued by the central bank, you don't need one. Because if you just have, this product that everyone uses and it can be regulated like a CBDC can, then it is one. It's just wearing it's like a really ugly chick, but she's like put on a face mask or something. It's like, dude.
This diagram illustrates the OCC reporting flow. Open Standard submits data through two distinct channels. Form PS01 is a weekly confidential filing detailing daily asset composition. Form PS02 is a quarterly public report, providing transparency for auditors to verify one-to-one dollar backing. Because of its broad corporate backing, OUSD's supply is expected to quickly exceed $10 billion.
Okay. To quickly exceed 10 billion, all right? This could be one of the most successful stablecoin products in history. If this thing can go from 0 to 10 billion in its launch period, then it could go from 10 to 100 really, really quick.
Let's put that into context. Ripple has, 1 billion?
Yeah, 1 point something.
For RLUSD?
Right.
This already has 10 billion, and it just launched.
Well, so it hasn't quite launched yet. It's about to. It's about to.
But it's going to have 10 billion.
The projection is that, within the launch phase, that it'll hit 10 billion like that. So, wow.
Crossing this threshold.
You got to figure all the liquidity that these banks that created it hold is going to be.
Right. And also, who are the competitors here? So you got Tether, 180 billion. You got Circle, 75 billion. Those are the competitors. So for them to launch at 10 billion and then scale to 100 billion over the course of the next year, well, totally makes sense.
Triggers a mandatory transition to joint federal and state banking oversight. Open Standard has traded the speed of regulatory arbitrage for the federal institutional compliance required by conservative corporate treasurers. General-purpose blockchains often struggle with enterprise-scale payments. When transaction volume spikes, latency increases, and gas fees become too volatile for predictable business operations.
Yeah, did you see that? That's another strike against these, public chains.
Yep.
This is the architecture of the Tempo Layer 1. Engineered specifically for stablecoin-based commerce, it's built on three...
Okay, so this is Stripe's chain. Stripe is one of the biggest payment processors in the world, and Stripe and Coinbase, they're also big investors in Circle with that USDC product. You know what both Coinbase and Stripe are doing, Mike? They're going to integrate OUSD into their products. Yep. And in the case of Stripe, OUSD is becoming the official stablecoin product that they're going to use within their product ecosystem. So, this is massive adoption. That looks like it's just within days of actually launching.
Well, and let me point something out. It was talking about gas and things like that. I'm always pointing out that, at its base, that, the fee to use the XRP ledger is 0.00001 XRP. That can scale, from 10 drops to 100 drops to 1,000 drops, which would be point zero.
So what is a drop?
It's basically kind of like
Gwei?
Yeah, basically. So
why do they call it a drop?
But that aside, if it scales with network usage, which you would think would be bullish, but if XRP is being used and needs to be a high dollar value, to be able to do cross-border payments and remittances, then if the fee scaled, it could get to a point to where it's $100 per transaction if the network was busy. Banks are going to use, they're building out their own networks so that they can control everything. If they control the rails, if they control the assets, if they control the yield that's generated off OUSD, all of these things, banks and institutions, they want control because control equals money. They're not going to give that control to anyone else. The reason I'm bullish on Canton is they're not trying to control anything. They are just giving the interoperability.
Technical pillars. As shown, the network achieves deterministic 0.6-second block finality. Once processed, transactions cannot be reversed, matching the settlement certainty of traditional banking. Tempo also utilizes the TIP 20 standard for gas abstraction. This allows transaction fees to be paid directly in the stablecoin being sent, providing a predictable, dollar-denominated cost structure for every transfer. This environment is optimized for agentic commerce. As AI models evolve into autonomous agents capable of executing tasks, they require an internet-native economic interface to purchase digital resources like data feeds or compute power. Traditional banking rails are incompatible with these automated workloads. They rely on human-centric verification, like passwords or SMS codes, and impose high minimum fees that make machine-driven micropayments impossible. To bridge this gap, OpenUSD employs the Machine Payments Protocol, or MPP. This protocol formalizes the HTTP 402 payment required status code as a machine-readable request for payment. This 5-step workflow tracks an MPP transaction. An AI agent requests a service. The server returns an HTTP 402 challenge with price and wallet data. The agent verifies its budget, signs a payment credential cryptographically, and retries the request for immediate on-chain settlement. For high-frequency interactions, MPP utilizes sessions. This allows an agent to authorize a budget once, aggregating thousands of sub-cent microtransactions into a single on-chain settlement. MPP and the Tempo runtime provide the deterministic sub-cent settlement rails necessary for a viable autonomous machine economy. Despite its technical stack and massive corporate coalition, OpenUSD enters a market governed by powerful network effects. This chart visualizes the liquidity barrier. Tether and Circle currently dominate the market with a combined $250 billion in circulation. OpenUSD begins with zero active transaction volume. Success depends on converting non-binding corporate announcements into actual transaction flow.
Okay, non-binding corporate announcements. That's basically all you got from the XRP guys. But this is real.
Institutional traders and protocols require deep liquidity to minimize slippage, giving incumbents a significant structural advantage. Beyond the market challenge, the consortium faces a critical operational threat from the very law it intends to follow. Section 4A11 of the Genius Act explicitly prohibits payment stablecoin issuers from paying any form of interest or yield to holders of the asset.
Now, think about that for a second. How horrible is that? That the Genius Act, the thing that everyone was cheering for in retail, it prohibits by law us as retail from earning any yield on our stablecoin balances.
Proposed OCC regulations go further, establishing a presumption that routing yield through affiliates or third parties to attract capital is a violation of this federal ban. This creates a direct conflict with Open Standards' core business model. If regulators determine that the partner yield-sharing mechanism is an indirect way to pay holders, the consortium could be forced to restructure its entire economic incentive system. The survival of OpenUSD depends on a difficult balancing act, defending its yield-sharing model against federal banking regulators while attempting to displace the entrenched liquidity of the current market leaders.
I think that it's probably going to be able to do it. I am very, very curious to use OUSD. I wonder which banks are going to support it natively from within their Web 2 interfaces first. We call that mullet banking. You've got the business in the front, party in the back. So what I mean by that is when you log into your Web 2 UI for, let's say, Bank of America, right? And you see your accounts and your balances, you can execute transactions, do whatever. Well, if some of those transactions that you execute from that Web 2 UI are actually using digital rails, that's the Web 3 part. So the Web 2 part is the front facing, the Web 3 part is the back end stuff. That's why it's called a mullet. So I wonder which of these banks are going to support this product first. It'll be interesting because I'm curious to use it just to see what it looks like.
Well, I can tell you right now. Shit, I had it pulled up and I closed it. Let me do this real quick.
I love this image about Pump Fund, Mike, because this is basically a giant casino on Solana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. OUSD stablecoin.
Let's see here. As you're pulling that up, I'm just going to get started on the Pump Fund content because I'm pretty curious to learn about Pump Fund and why the token hasn't pumped.
Well, really quick, let me share this. So we're going to go over that. You know what? Go ahead. I'll show it after.
Gotcha.
By the middle of the year 2026, the Solana decentralized application ecosystem reached a fever pitch.
Oh, by the way, you know which chains OUSD is launching on natively first? Solana. Solana is one of them.
Of massive transaction throughput. At the center of that activity was Pump.Fun, a protocol that abstracted away the technical complexities of smart contract deployment to industrialize the meme coin lifecycle. By March 8, 2026, the platform had collected over $1 billion in cumulative fees, making it the first application in Solana's history to reach 10-figure lifetime revenue. Management funneled a significant portion of those profits into an aggressive tokenomics overhaul. Over a 9-month period, the protocol executed massive open market purchases, culminating in the permanent destruction of roughly 41. Despite massive fee generation and supply reduction, the token collapsed from a peak of nearly 0.9 of a cent down to just over 0.1 of a cent, an 83% drop. Attempting to stem the bleeding, the protocol team adjusted their strategy on April 29, 2026. They deployed a hard-coded smart contract, routing 50% of the platform's net revenue into daily open market purchases of Pump, burning tokens immediately upon acquisition.
That's good.
$1 billion in revenue and constant market buy pressure usually points to asset appreciation.
Right. So these are good things. Why is the token still down in the dumps?
The fact that Pump's valuation collapsed anyway demonstrates that a highly profitable application layer does not automatically translate into native asset value. To understand why, we have to look past the top-line revenue. This price paradox exposes severe mathematical flaws in how the protocol's internal architecture interacts with insider capital. First, we have to examine the token's baseline function within the broader Pump-Pun ecosystem. The asset suffers from a severe token utility deficit. An end user interacting with the platform does not need to hold or spend a single Pump token to launch a new project, trade on the bonding curves, or access advanced terminal analytics. The token is entirely decoupled from the product. It offers zero native staking yields, provides no fee discounts to high-volume traders, and carries no governance weight over platform treasury allocations.
Wow, that really sucks. So basically, there's no utility for this Pump token at all. But it does seem like cash flows from the protocol accrue to the token in some way with that buyback and burn mechanism. Those are some significant cash flows, but there's no utility.
On-chain data shows token holder net income sits precisely at 0. This utility vacuum leaves the token with no organic holding demand. Without internal incentives to retain the asset, its price floor relies entirely on the daily 50% programmatic buyback bid to absorb market sell pressure. When an on-chain asset has zero organic demand, it acts as a passive, indirect sponge. It can only survive if the massive external fee extraction engine funding that sponge operates flawlessly and accelerates forever. That fee extraction engine begins with a mathematical bonding curve. Early-stage trades execute against a quadratic algorithm where token pricing is strictly dictated by circulating supply. This flowchart tracks a swap through the protocol's fee router. Pre-graduation, orders execute against the curve, routing 0.95% to the Treasury. Hitting the $69,000 to $90,000 threshold triggers graduation. The protocol permanently burns remaining curve supply. Accumulated collateral is migrated into a constant product automated market maker on PumpSwap. Here, the protocol applies a sliding fee schedule, isolating the tier exceeding 420 SOL. In this mature phase, the direct protocol fee plummets from 0.95 to a flat 0.05%. Mathematically, this transition represents a staggering 94.74% structural contraction in direct fee capture efficiency. This fee cliff dictates the protocol's cash flow. If trading volume shifts away from new launches toward established tokens, revenue completely dries up, even if the total ecosystem transaction volume remains incredibly high. Because the pump token's price floor depends entirely on net revenue, it is structurally dependent on high-margin pre-graduation trading. The entire defense mechanism requires an unending, unsustainable velocity of.
Can you decode that? Because I'll be honest, I don't understand what it just said.
Okay, so what it's saying is when you launch a meme coin on Pump Fund, the fee tier that it starts at during that bonding curve phase is just about 1%. That is a massive fee tier. And those fees accrue to the Pump Fund protocol, not liquidity providers. So that means that when a token is in the bonding curve phase, Pump Fund makes a ton of money off of that. But once the token hits some TVL limit, then it exits the bonding curve phase, and there is a liquidity pool, a constant product market maker liquidity pool. I don't know if it's V2 or V3, probably V2, that is initialized. And when that pool is initialized, that fee tier goes from just about 1% to 0.05%. So a 95% reduction in the fee tier. So that means that the protocol's revenues go from whatever they were during the bonding curve phase to 95% less after the bonding curve phase.
So it sounds like that the protocol itself does the best when there's a lot of hype around meme coins, a lot of meme coins being created.
A lot of launches, right? It doesn't do well with tokens that are established.
Yeah.
Completely new token launches. By early 2026, that launch velocity slowed. Retail capital began rotating away from high-velocity speculative assets and toward lower-risk on-chain consumer loops and institutional products. The broader pump stack felt the contraction immediately. Gross protocol revenue fell from $287.1 million in the first quarter down to $179.3 million in the second quarter, a severe 37.5% drop in just 3 months. External competition accelerated this decline. On July 1, 2026, Robinhood launched its permissionless Ethereum Layer 2 on Arbitrum's Orbit technology, creating a massive institutional consumer portal. Robinhood Chain offered 24/7 self-custody trading of tokenized equities, paired with a decentralized lending product paying roughly 7% annual yield.
I'm just going to make a comment about Robinhood Chain real quick. Something like 40% of transactions on that chain fail right now. So big problem with that.
This redirected significant retail liquidity away from the volatility of Solana launchpads into structured, yield-bearing instruments. Simultaneously, Pump.Fund faced direct threats on its home network. Radium introduced LaunchLab, capturing substantial market share by undercutting them with zero initial migration fee.
And so Radium is a competing decentralized exchange on Solana, one of the largest.
Another native competitor, Let's Bonk, attacked the model from a structural angle.
So Let's Bonk, just so that everyone's aware, Bonk, the DAO, recently suffered a significant economic exploit.
Instead of extracting fees to a treasury, Let's Bonk opted for a transparent model, returning 58. This animation illustrates the single event scale. 82.5 billion team tokens became liquid, representing $127 million of new supply. Next to it, mid-2026 average daily volume hovered between $30 and $70 million, roughly half the unlock. The only counter was the buyback mechanism. With normalized revenues, maximum purchasing power capped at $514,000 daily. Mapped against the $127 million unlock, the daily defense had a maximum coverage capacity of less than 0.41%. Liquidating even a fraction of that newly unlocked insider supply into a thin order book creates an immediate structural imbalance,
Got it.
triggering severe price slippage.
Okay, so this is why the pump token has done nothing but go down, because insiders have been dumping it. Well, what happens when insiders run out of supply to sell? Will they ever run out of supply to sell? I don't know.
Programmatic buybacks derived from revenue fractions simply do not possess the capital depth required to act as a liquidity buffer during concentrated unlock events. Against a deterministic macro liquidity shock, the model is mathematically insolvent. When market participants see an unlock of that magnitude approaching without native holding incentives, capital flight occurs long before the actual date.
So isn't that happening on the 12th of this month in 3 days? There's a big unlock, right? Of pump tokens? Pretty sure.
Yeah.
This dynamic creates an insider extraction loop.
Yeah.
Early venture investors and core team members acquire their allocations at negligible cost. Once unlocked, they can treat the protocol's daily programmatic buyback bid not as price support, but as guaranteed automated exit liquidity. On-chain data highlighted this exact behavior in March 2026, when a team-linked wallet transferred 1.75 billion pump directly to a centralized exchange, deliberately absorbing a significant portion of the protocol's daily buyback demand. The collapse of the token's valuation is driven by three compounding structural vectors: a massive 94.74%. The highly publicized destruction of $370 million worth of pump tokens reduced the total supply on paper, but it was purely a cosmetic intervention. It did nothing to alter the architectural flaws constantly suppressing the price floor. For an application layer token to retain value over a multi-year horizon, it must evolve past indirect mechanics. Direct yield sharing from protocol fees, substantial fee discounts, or genuine governance over treasury allocations are required to tightly align the token's value with the platform's actual cash flows. Until those structural upgrades are implemented, massive protocol revenues will continue to mask a fragile asset. Without organic native utility, indirect buyback and burn tokenomics merely socialize the cost of insider dilution directly onto retail participants.
Oh, yuck. Man, I didn't hear anything good there.
I really enjoy Crypto Steve-O. As bullish as he is, he's very even-keeled. As bullish as he is on Solana and Pump and and in any project. I've known him for quite a while now, just digitally, and he's always very logical. He always has good, solid kind of reasoning, if I agree with it or not, behind his thesis on different things. But I want to point out really quick. So Pseudo for me, welcome to the show, and thank you for the comment. You do know that Ripple is involved in OUSD, right? Yes, we do understand that they're looking at having that on the chain. However, if you watch the first half of the show, and you understand that the tokenomics of XRP and the XRPL and RLUSD, that's not bullish for the XRP token, or RLUSD.
So basically, they're inviting their going to be biggest competitor onto their chain, but you got to always think, what is the value accrual mechanism to the token that you hold? Like, if you think that the XRP token is going to make you money, well, why? Because just having OUSD on your XLP ledger, why would that accrue value to your XRP token? You've got to be able to answer that question. The answer is it likely doesn't. Okay.
Being burned as gas is the only way, and we did the math. Without the fee scaling, at the current rate of 0.00001 XRP per transaction, it would take over 10,000 years at max TPS to burn just 10% of the XRP supply.
So Mike, speaking of
I don't know if you're an eternal and been around that long.
You're a vampire.
Yeah, but I'm not.
Yeah, one of those eternal vampire beings. But taking a look at this pump token real quick, there is support here. The one thing that was super valuable about October 10th was it showed you which tokens have zero liquidity, like none. Cosmos Atom, that was one that went to zero. And this thing, on on that fateful day, October 10th, was down 93% from peak to trough on October 10th. So this token pump has very, very little liquidity. And, there is support at the lows from that wick lower on the 10th. So that support is at, 4/10 of 1/10 of a penny. Okay. So we're talking about if a penny was broken up into 100 pieces, you would have 4 over 100 of 1 penny. Okay. So this is like a further 70% to the downside from where this pump token is currently trading. And we know that on the 12th, there's going to be some massive unlock. So yeah, this doesn't look good. And then, a lot of guys are speculating that because Pump Fund generates a lot of revenue, that, that will at some point in the future be positive for the pump token. But what we just learned is that there's really no programmatic way that value accrues to the pump token. It seems as though those indirect buyback and burns are simply inefficient, not enough. It needs, so Crypto Steve is saying that you want to buy pump blood. Why? The market's telling you that it's.
He's saying that whenever that or that sell pressure.
Oh, I know. I understand, but why would you think that that's an opportunity? The market is telling you, hey, this thing is not valuable, and that's why the price is going down.
I mean,
so,
but there's something to be said, and I'm not saying go do it, and I'm definitely not personally going to do it. But I mean, if you want to do a high risk move, and you're used to gambling on memes and stuff like that, you have a high risk profile, that it could possibly work out for you. With all that sell pressure, it drives the price down. If you bought at some lows, the bull market comes around, and the meme coin casino takes off, and it starts doing its thing like it seems to always fucking do, and it pumps up a bunch, and you start selling as it's pumping. It can make you money if it does that. But go ahead, David. Sorry.
I didn't realize you had a crystal ball, Mike.
No, like I said, I peppered plenty of ifs and stuff like that in there because we have seen it in the past. Like Crypto Stevo says, it's the pump token has pumped hard several times.
I mean, has it?
Yeah.
Where? When were these pumps you speak of?
What are you on the weekly?
I'm looking at the chart on the weekly. I mean, if I zoom in to a daily, maybe we can find some of these so-called pump events. Okay, well, here's one. After the initial launch,
I always ignore the initial
and dump. Then we got a pump. Okay, here's a pump, and I see a series of lower highs and lower lows.
Well, like measure some of those, peak to troughs.
So trough to peak, it pumped 50% in about a week back in September, and then because of the volatility of this thing, and then from trough to peak in October, right after the flash crash, it pumped 65%, and then at the end of last year. Over the course of a couple of months.
In a nutshell, not enough to take that risk.
Yeah, and I mean, these are just lower highs and lower lows.
I would want to see 50x, 100x or more to take a risk like this.
And also, I don't know about you, but there's a big difference between seeing a pump and then being able to get lucky enough to time it. I don't have a crystal ball. You know?
And that's if you timed it perfectly. If you just knew, where the bottom was and where the top.
And no one can possibly know. I think it's a fool's errand. And I think that what the market is telling you here is that these tokenomics are broken.
$100, throw $100 at it. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see something like that.
No, because that's an opportunity cost. You could take that $100 and you could deploy it into something that has solid tokenomics. So that there's an opportunity cost there.
If it's $100, I mean, I don't see it doing any multiples that would make me do it, but I can see if you just feel like throwing $100 at it because you're bullish on pump or whatever your reasons. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, but I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could go down a further 70%. So if I had a choice between $100 and $30, I would go with the $100. But even better, I would go with the $100 invested in something that's likely to appreciate. And so that's the opportunity cost,
Absolutely. I mean, if I'm going to gamble on something, I want more of a potential for upside. But
I don't know. So Crypto Steve is talking about Alex Becker, and if you've seen some of Alex Becker's recent stuff, I think Alex Becker lost his ass last year. I think he probably lost like 8 figures. Okay. And so he has the tone of his content, especially on X, has completely changed. He's basically like gone almost like monk mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So he's definitely gone from the theatrics to being more like I'm playing it safe.
Yeah. So, and he also almost got put away for 15 years for unintentionally taking a firearm over to, I think, the Cayman Islands or something.
Yeah, it was someplace in the Caribbean. I mean that's.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that type of scare can, for a lot of people, shock some sense into them. Yeah.
All right, so let's go through some of these comments. So Booker T, welcome. You both said, well, no, I said David. I don't think he was ever an investor in XRP.
Never.
So yes, I was. And if you want to watch the beginning of the show, I break down why it is I got out. I was in the top 2-3% of XRP holders. I had over 40,000 XRP with an average buy-in of about 34 cents. And when it pumped, I sold at around $2. Obviously I didn't time the top. That's all right. I made money. But what made me flip was endless promises. So, all these partnerships that never materialized, that never, actually led to adoption and fees being generated and revenue being generated. All of the different promises that, it was going to go to $100 or, $10 or whatever, when the court case was over or, when X, Y, or Z happened. I was in, XRP for like 4 or 5 years, all through the last bear market and just, never freaking happened. And then the whole thesis for a high value XRP past being a gas token was that it was going to be the bridge liquidity. And for the most part, a lot of that was replaced by RLUSD. And with no adoption of any of, Ripple Prime or anything like that, it's just, I don't see a bull case for it. And so I sold my XRP. And that's not why I'm butting it. I sold it because the whole thesis, I did not see any facts to support the need for a high dollar XRP. Even Ripple has shifted its focus from doing cross-border remittances and payments for the banks to becoming a bank. They're running around dumping XRP for liquidity to pay for offices in New York and offices in San Francisco and offices in London and to pay salaries and to buy banks.
You know what? It surely isn't. They're not providing liquidity on any of those 2 dexes. There's no liquidity there.
No, and the other aspect of it too is that the bottom line is the XRP token does not have any value capture.
None.
We played a video at the very beginning of the show where it had I forget his name, but he is an executive at a major crypto firm, and he talks about exactly what we teach here on a.
I think it was CoinShares, CEO of CoinShares. Yeah.
It wasn't the CEO, but it was an executive.
Yeah.
And he was talking about that XRP specifically. It's not the only one, but XRP, the token, lacks value capture, and without value capture, you, the token holder, no matter how successful Ripple is, you will not share in the fees or the revenue generated. And any price movement that you see in that token is purely speculative. And as soon as people figure that out, that 60 billion or $70 billion market cap of XRP could drastically correct.
And so, you know, what you see what Pseudo for me is saying in the chat, and I really do appreciate this comment. I think that this is a great comment. The very last one about, you know, you're talking about the income of Ripple Labs, right? And then he goes on to say that, but you're not saying what the value of Bitcoin is, and that Bitcoin doesn't do anything but have first mover advantage. Well, I would say that Bitcoin is, one of the first movers in crypto, largest market cap, most decentralized, only digital commodity, but it's got real problems. And we talk about those all the time.
Yeah.
But it certainly is not the same as holding a token like XRP that's completely disconnected from any cash flows from Ripple Labs. So, you know, when you hold Bitcoin, you hold a commodity. When you hold XRP, you hold like a quasi-security that has no value capture.
You're holding a Ripple meme coin.
Basically.
It's a gas token, and as of right now, yes, it can be used for non-dollar denominated transfers. But as we saw, as you learned in this episode, OUSD is what the banks and the BIS
eat their lunch.
Yes,
yeah,
that is what is going to be used to eliminate those Nostro Vostro accounts, and
Tether and Circle need to watch out.
Yeah. So I mean, please, with an open mind, if you're just joining or you joined halfway through, so valuable. Go back through, take notes if you want. If we got something wrong, come into the Discord, direct message me on X, tell us what you feel we got wrong, and cite an official source, a primary source of where you are, that supports your claim.
Right. And if you want to see our primary sources, go to the Intel library. Take a look at the dossiers that we publish every single day on all of these different crypto and DeFi projects, protocols, coins, tokens, everything, even stocks. So yeah, we cite our sources every single day. And it's out there in the open in public. So you can check it out.
I've actually watched Black Swan Capitalists. I believe it's those twins that I'll actually take a look at some of their content, see what they're saying these days, and maybe reach out to them, see if they want to come on. Yeah, I am familiar. A CTM monster. Hidden Road and G Treasury together is the 16 trillion yearly business. They don't need to sell XRP to fund their operations. Okay, where is that?
You have any evidence of that? Like, is that what is that? Was that a press release that you read somewhere?
And where is that 16 trillion? Because I can show you where Ripple is still, selling XRP out of that, 1 billion per month that gets unlocked out of escrow.
So yeah, Mike, I'm taking a look here at this pattern that I saw a guy that I follow on X post a couple of times in the last few days. This is, dude, one thing that Bitcoin loves to do is it puts in the same types of patterns over and over again. Mm-hmm. So the falling wedge is a Bitcoin pattern that it puts in over and over again. Inverse head and shoulders pattern is a pattern that Bitcoin likes to put in. It also puts in flags a lot, both bull and bear flags. And so we're getting close to the end of this Bitcoin bear market. And this pattern, these falling wedges here that you can see, these are beautiful bullish patterns. So I think all we've got to do is wait until October. And, by October, my expectation is that Bitcoin will have touched 50K, and that will be the bottom. And then the expectation from me anyway, this is what I think is going to happen. I think Bitcoin bottoms at 50K, maybe a little bit below that, but I'll be buying 50K for sure. And then I think it heads up to 180 or 190 by the middle of 2029. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be buying BTC 50K and, might not even exit it up here, to be completely honest. But I think that this is a very bullish looking pattern. I expect that this time will be no different than previous cycles. Mm-hmm. So, and then what does that mean for, the handful of alts that I like? Well, if Ethereum is able to break out in Bitcoin terms. If you just take a look at ETH BTC, this chart of ETH BTC, now this goes back quite a few more years than this, but just over the last couple of years, ETH has done nothing but lose value in Bitcoin terms. That's not good, okay? So, the Ethereum Foundation, I have no idea what they're really thinking other than privacy, sovereignty, like the cypherpunk, selective disclosure type ethos. I like that, but it also needs the commercialization layer. And I think that is going to continue to be built with Ether Labs. That's Tom Lee's deal. And then there's another one that was just announced the other day. But I think that there's going to be a lot more public-facing dApps built out on Ethereum and its chains. And I think that those layer 2 chains with blobs are actually a virtuous burn for ETH, the token, that could help number go up for ETH. So I want to speculate on that. Solana seems to be being used by many big institutions. As we can point to OUSD launching on Solana natively. So even though this is a really, really bearish pattern, the head and shoulders pattern with the break of the neckline, the bear flag, which confirmed, I still want to pick up some SOL. And then if we're talking about value accrual, got to talk about hype. I think that this, if I had to bet, Mike, on which tokens would be the best performers for the next 12 months, I would bet hype, number 1, Bitcoin, number 2, Canton, number 3.
Yeah.
That would be my bet. So yeah, notice I didn't mention ETH. A lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
A lot of uncertainty around ETH, but yeah.
So really quick, so the OUSD, this is all the partners. It is, you got Aave, American Express, Aptos Labs, you got, all these different banks. This is the list of everybody that's involved with this. You even have Stellar in here, you have SWE in here, you have Polygon, you have Plasma. It's just, I can't stress it enough that, these banks and institutions are not going to give up the control that they have.
Right. And so, also, I see the comment, Mike. You see the comment about XRP being, ruled by those in the ivory tower to be a digital commodity.
I want to point something out. That is a legal classification. It doesn't mean that it is a commodity. Right. It's just a legal classification because it's not a security. So if it's not a security, and
really, is it?
Well, but if it was ruled in a court of law, XRP to not be a security, and so basically that would mean that in U.S. law it would fall under the CFTC, which would mean that it's a commodity, and so that's for the most part why it was deemed a commodity. I don't see it as being a commodity personally.
Me neither. Yeah, me neither.
So that I hope that kind of clears that up. But welcome and thank you for the comment. So if you would like to take advantage of some of this information, love it or hate it, if you'd like to take advantage of it, we offer it all for free. So if you want to go to DeFi University, it is a multi-module course with structured courses with tests and quizzes and checks on learning. If you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, it teaches you about fiat. It teaches you about the banking system. And I think it would help a lot of people that are invested in XRP to go through. And again, not saying that you don't know some of this stuff already. I've learned stuff. David's learned stuff, and he's the one that put it together. When it comes to fiats and banks and things like that. So go through that. No tricks, no gimmicks. 100% free. Also, the Intel library. All of these deep dives that we do, we offer them free of charge. We do not charge for any of this. I cannot stress that enough. We have the things that we're saying. Again, we could do nothing but talk positively about XRP and get thousands of freaking views on our show. Like David said, we do this because we want to educate the community. Not our focus. Yes, we would love to make money giving good, solid, factual content. But we are not going to compromise our integrity to simply shill to get views, to make money. We are here to educate.
We don't have any, perverse incentive like that. We're going to call it how we see it. We're going to call it how it is, and with unbiased primary sources.
And Ivan, point out, what are we saying that's nonsense? I have put out for years now. I have put out a challenge. I've thrown down the gauntlet to Good Evening Crypto, to Zach Rector, to any Maxi, any channel, any individual that wants to come on the show and debunk anything that we say about XRP. Not a single one of them have ever taken me up on it. What does that tell you? I'm willing to go on their show. I'm willing to go, I will come on anyone's show, and I will, like we have here, and I will cite official sources, Ripple documentation for everything that we claim here. None of this is our personal opinion. This is a statement of fact. And if you think that you can debunk any of it, we welcome that here. Watch what happens if you go on one of those channels that shills XRP and you start saying negative things. What happens in the chat? What happens? Hell, they took, when we just simply, David called XRP a scam. Good Evening Crypto took that soundbite on their show. And
it was so good. It was so good because they didn't even refute it. They were just like, oh, it's emotion. Just prices down. Don't worry about it.
So unprofessional. It's like, okay, why is it unprofessional? Everything we say here, we have cited our sources and we have given, from Ripple official documentation, from the SEC, from reputable sources, not ex post, not our personal opinion, not a bunch of emotion. We are simply stating facts. So by all means, Ivan, if you can go through the show, take notes, go and find some sources, reach out to me on our Discord, reach out to me on X, and if you're right and you can show where we're wrong, we will change that, that specific thing in our documentation. It's an open challenge to the whole XRP army.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you've got this amazing, value accrual mechanism that for some reason is hidden that we can't see, and if there's all this user growth that maybe we're just not looking in the right place, we can't see that either, and they make a ton of money, but, we can't see that either. If you've got all of these amazing sources, then, please bring it on.
Longview compute. I messaged you earlier. It looks like you got it. I would love to have you on the show. I would love to have you on the show. He very knowledgeable about Canton. I very much enjoy your content, so I would love to have you on the show. And if you want to go through again, any project we talk about, anyone out there, if they feel like that we got something wrong, and again, if you can cite a solid, reputable source to support that we got something wrong, we have no ego here. We are here to learn, just like all of you. And if you can school us and you can learn us, I welcome that.
Great. So I see the comment that he's posting in the chat now. This is excellent news. 80 billion settled with Ripple last year, 5 billion on the ledger.
What does that mean?
That's right. That's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
There's no value accrual, brother.
There's no capture. It doesn't mean anything. And also those numbers are low compared to many other chains. So
and actually he's a perfect example. Canton, you're very knowledgeable on Canton. You understand the burn mint, the mechanism in place. We've interviewed Shaw multiple times from digital asset. But that is what we teach here. And I would love for you to come on because I'd love to discuss this. But value capture. The Canton token is a perfect example, and the hype token is a perfect example of value capture, where the fees that are generated by the chain and by the products and services, 100% of them are burnt. Canton right now is inflationary. Fully understand that. Hype is deflationary. That is why I feel that we have seen the positive price movement in hype, and potentially with the soft launch coming, for the DTCC here next week, and in October the full launch, potentially as these other projects are going live and more fees are being generated and burned, potentially as we move to the equilibrium, we should see more price appreciation. Should, not a guarantee, but understanding that XRP has terrible value capture. Because
I don't think it has any. I think it has negative value capture. So, yeah, I mean, there's a difference between vanity metrics and the ones that actually matter. And so we've identified with our trifecta the three that actually matter.
Yeah.
It's value accrual, user adoption, and revenue generation. Those are the three items that actually matter. Transactions on the chain, wallet addresses on the chain, those things don't matter. So there are vanity metrics and there are metrics that actually drive value for a token holder. So unfortunately, XRP's tokenomics and all of our three metrics for the trifecta for XRP, none of them are met. And so that leads me to conclude that XRP, the token, is some type of meme, disconnected from the fundamentals of any business revenues. And yeah, just not good, not a good look.
And that's the problem is, revenue wins for the company. Ripple might do bang up business. I'm not saying that I'm bearish on Ripple.
Isn't Ripple a private company? Is it still private? Yeah. So we have no window into how much they actually make, do we?
Well, and whatever revenue they generate, if there is no connection to the token, revenue doesn't win. It wins for Ripple. It doesn't win for us, the token holders.
Right. And didn't they just spend a ton of money to buy businesses? Who's to say that those businesses, are going to continue to be successful? How do we know whether those businesses were actually, cash flow positive when they bought them? It's very often the case that a business will buy another business, and then that business that they bought ends up becoming like a vampire attack against the main one. So I'm uncertain as to the actual revenues that Ripple Labs generates. And that's probably because it's a private company, right?
Yeah. Well, in Longview, I love this. I always have more to learn. So do we. Like, if you want to come on the show, we would love to have a very, very respectful. We don't do the ad hominem tax. We don't do any of that. We love having logical, well-reasoned.
Only on Tuesdays.
No, Thursday evening.
Yeah, that's right.
Tonight on the Red Pill.
It's going to be fun.
We'll be getting drunk and talking about flock cameras tonight. But yes, we have things to learn. If you come on the show, you might teach us something about XRP that we overlooked. We're open to that. We're just going off of what we've been able to find.
Flea market mixtape. Yeah. So I don't think that we've been making the claim that XRP is worthless.
No.
I think that what we've been saying is that it doesn't tick any of our boxes that a project token has to tick for us to be able to say, hey, yeah, it looks like number go up for that one. You need value capture, you need protocol revenues, and you need real user adoption. And in the absence of those three, I think the token is likely to lose value over time, not gain value. So that's the thing for me about not just XRP, but many crypto projects.
95% or more.
I think so.
Out there lack value capture,
right?
And long term, and that doesn't mean you can't make money on these projects. We've seen over and over again. Hype and speculative pumps and, buy the rumor, sell the news. There's plenty of money to be made, in that aspect of crypto.
But now the dude has jumped in and said that don't come off that way. Oh man. Well, okay. XRP is actually worthless. That's what I think now.
These are statement of fact. It's as far as as far as XRP is. Whatever you think it is, because we're not going to change your mind, obviously. But this is what we are measuring. This is the trifecta, and this is how businesses, are minus value capture. This is how businesses are valuated. like non-crypto businesses. Again, if you watch Shark Tank, if you have ever had exposure to sitting down in a room where VCs or investors are talking with a company about investing in it, this is the stuff that they ask. So if you've ever watched Shark Tank, the questions they ask is, what was your sales last year?
Right.
What was your cost of production?
Right.
How many units did you move? All of these different things.
How many customers do you have?
How many customers do you have?
What's your customer base doing? Is it growing?
Yeah. Are you online? Are you in brick and mortar? These are all things that they ask because in their head, they're crunching numbers. They're looking at, okay, if I'm buying 10% of your company for $500,000, that means that your company is worth $5 million. So do you have the revenue to support that valuation? Often they don't. And that is what we're talking about. Like with XRP, it has, again, was it $70 billion market cap?
For what?
For what?
Mike, we were earlier today during the show, we were on the two decentralized exchanges outside of, I guess, the main Ripple DEX. And those two DEXs on XRP Ledger don't work at all.
Well, and okay, Longview, if this is correct, 80 billion settled with Ripple last year. How much fees and revenue was generated by Ripple by doing that? And does that support even if, because XRP is not a security, so it's not a representation of Ripple the company. So what even if they did that, say 80 billion, that they made $80 billion in fees, off the 80 billion settled. I know it's ridiculous, but let's just say that they did that.
No, it's probably closer to Steve-O's $5.
Well, I mean, it's the fees that they're earning for the most part. It's not. I know that the Ripple Prime, they probably charge something different. But as far as XRP the token, it has no connection to any of those fees or revenue that's generated. That's right. The bottom line is it doesn't have value capture. The fees and revenue shared with token holders. XRP does not have that. The only aspect it has is as a gas token and potentially as a bridge asset. But we've gone through, I'm not going to go through it again.
False use case.
We've gone through that earlier in the show, that they are lacking the adoption that OUSD and a lot of these other projects are capturing that market share.
And you see what Longview Compute said in the chat. That's a really valid point. That as far as XRP burned, more Canton is burned in a day than XRP has in its entire lifetime. And that's such a great point, man. Because Canton, even though it is inflationary, we're going to be the first to admit that.
Yes.
What it looks like is happening with Canton is it's actually being adopted now for all of the use cases that everyone for the last decade said that XRP and Ripple would get adopted for, which they have not and never will. And it looks like Canton and Connexus, those chains, plus this OUSD are going to put Ripple out of business. They're not going to be able to compete with that.
Well,
that's what I think. That's what I think.
And that's what you think. And there's a lot of data to support that. Even if Ripple does bang in business, and because they're shifting their focus, if you watch, they shifted to buying banks and buying these, institutions that have, existing licenses so that they can operate in different jurisdictions and things like that. And they're shifting their business model because they see the writing on the wall.
So, Mike, I don't know if you want to right now, but I really do appreciate this comment in the chat about the fuzzy pool. So we were going through First Ledger and Sologenic, whatever it's called, earlier in the show, and those pools are fake, man. Those are not real. Those numbers are not real. There's no liquidity there.
Well, and David is basing this on vast experience in DeFi. It's how he makes his living. He's been doing it for over 5 years.
Full time.
Yeah,
full time. So yeah, I would just say that if you're thinking about depositing your capital, if you own XRP on the XRP ledger and you're thinking about providing liquidity on either of those two dexes, don't. Run in the opposite direction. Because the moment that you deposit into a pool like that, if you're even able to get it to work, which I'm kind of dubious of in the first place, because I don't think that those dexes actually work.
And this is true of all dexes, not just ones on the XRPL. If there is not deep liquidity, we always teach people to avoid dexes that have shallow liquidity. And the reason is because of slippage, because of, if the liquidity that you are providing, basically it's just slippage. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get
basically into yeah. So I mean, if you are depositing liquidity into a pool, and there's the other token in the pool, the other half of the pool is valueless, then when you try to withdraw your liquidity, even a small amount, you're going to suffer massive slippage on the exit. And so that means that if you deposit, $1 of XRP, well, the moment that you do that, you're going to have to swap half of it for whatever that other token is. Yeah. And so if there's no liquidity for that other token, when you go to withdraw, well, you're going to get penalized heavily, and you might be lucky to get 50% of your dollar back. So you really got to be careful with those.
And we teach all this, and I appreciate this comment, Ivan. Not arguing, just check. Maybe you can explain something I don't understand. We teach this again, on our website.
Literally wrote the book on it.
wrote a book on it. So yeah, let's do this.
Five books.
Yeah.
One of them was liquidity provision.
So let's go through this, because I can talk about this all fucking day. So we're already way over. But if you come here to the Node.pro, this is a free website. You can start free now. Sign up. It doesn't cost anything. You don't need a credit card. You don't need anything. Just go in here. Go to the Learning Center. If you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, click on it. We teach you about the basics. The history of fiat. We teach you how banks work. We teach you about fractional banking, all of that different stuff, so that you understand our bullish case for crypto. Then we get into wallets. We get into DeFi protocols and all these things that we're talking about with liquidity provision and what impermanent loss is. Things that I would have killed for when I first got in, because everybody wants to charge thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for their program to teach this stuff.
And guess what? I wrote all these courses and give it away for free here at the Node.pro. Yeah. I also give it away for free at DeFiUniversity.xyz. Yeah. And what Ivan Kara of 8841 is asking about the fuzzy pool specifically, what I'll say about that, without having seen this specific fuzzy pool, is that the top two pools on both Sologenic and the other one is whatever that DEX is on XRP Ledger. I don't even remember the name of the thing, but
First Ledger.
Thank you, First Ledger. So First Ledger and Sologenic, the top two pools on both of those DEXs. I've done this for a living for years, and when you look at the metrics for those pools, I've provided liquidity and mentored clients, hundreds of them, and seen thousands of positions over the course of years for people who were trying to generate passive income through liquidity provision. And there are certain metrics that you look for that will tell you, hey, is there a red flag or not? So if we're trying to find this fuzzy pool over here, I don't know if you're sorting by TVL, Mike. So fuzzy, okay, so fuzzy, TVL, 1.3 million. Great. Go ahead and click through. Let's take a look at this. So it looks like the projected fee APR is 5.90%. Okay, but the important metrics here are not to look at that fee APR. That can be super, super misleading because you don't know how that's calculated. A lot of the time, it can be calculated based on single tick liquidity provision. This is a V2 pool, so that's likely not going to be the way that it's calculated here. But the TVL, if it's 1.3 million XRP is the TVL, okay? But the 24-hour volume is 46K XRP. And that's generating, at the fee tier is 0.75%. That is a massive fee tier. So this thing, how much volume has it generated over 30 days? Okay, that's decent volume. Now this pool looks real to me. This looks real. Now here's the problem that you've got to think about at this point in time. Something called impermanent loss.
Mhm.
So what is impermanent loss? Impermanent loss is the cost of volatility. When you provide liquidity in asset A and asset B, 50% of each, and that asset, one of the underlying assets moves or they move against one another, that movement is referred to impermanent loss. It's referred to as impermanent loss. So basically, this is the way that you need to think about it. If you had just held the tokens that you deposited into the pool and done nothing, would you have either made more or lost less? So the difference between whether you made more or lost less and your result as a liquidity provider, that is your impermanent loss. So if you could just hold the tokens and make more money than being in the pool, why would you ever enter the pool? Or if you could lose less money by just holding the tokens, why would you enter the pool? The only reason why
let me simplify this a little bit, because I know I've been where you're at, Ivan, and it's very, what David's saying is very confusing. He's a very smart dude. Basically, my job here is to dumb things down. So basically, what he's saying is that the fees that you earn for providing liquidity need to outpace the impermanent loss that he's talking about.
Exactly right.
Because if it doesn't, you're going to lose money.
Right. That's right.
That's the bottom line.
And so the bottom line for this specific pool, why this is likely not a good opportunity, is because if that fee APR is correct of 5.9%, and I would hazard a guess that it is not, because the TVL is so much greater than that 24-hour volume, I doubt it's even generating 6% APR. I think it's probably closer to 2, even with that 0.75% fee tier, which is really, really wide. So if it's not generating any yield, then the only way that you can be profitable as an LP in this pool is if the tokens don't move against one another. Because then you would have
a stable pair or something like that.
But this is not a stable pair. This is some type of fake meme coin on XRP ledgers. So this has massive volatility. So basically, if the volatility is greater than your fee APR, you're losing. And that means you're structurally losing. You're statistically likely to lose money over time as an LP. So this is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. And, it would be compounded to become even worse if there's thin liquidity here. So, this fuzzy token, it's got 17 billion tokens in the pool. And it's counting those fuzzy tokens. Yeah, man, I would steer clear. You see where it says pool health down there? At least it gives you like a little thing where it says activity low. What it's referring to is the 24-hour volume as a percentage of the TVL. So you need a ton of volume for this to be profitable. It is not. So it's not going to be profitable there.
If you want to learn more about this stuff, again, come here to DeFi University. This is all free. There's no gimmicks, no catches. Just come here, go through the course. You'll learn all about impermanent loss. You'll learn all about advanced strategies, like looping and things like that. We teach it all here, and so again, no cost. The Intel library, all of the deep dives that we do here are free. You can come in here, all of these projects, you can check them out. And the great thing about them is, again, just like we always say, hey, damn it.
No, I know. I need to fix that.
Let me log in.
The sign in. Yeah.
It's all right. Let's see. There we go. All right. So all of the deep dive that we do, the video, all of the summary, it gives all the data. It's all here. The infographic, the PowerPoint presentation that gives all the different data. The one, the kind of the one sheet that just kind of shows it all in a snapshot, and the source document. So basically, the document that we use and the information we use to generate the all the information above, and the most important thing is we cite our sources. So anywhere that we got information from is, we have a hyperlink to where we got it. And if you look, it's from Binance. It's from Crypto Slate, the docs from Radium, the official documentation of Pump.fun. These aren't X posts. These aren't our personal opinions. These are statements of fact. So again, we give all of this away. You're not going to find another channel with more integrity than you find. We literally put our money where our mouth is. The newsletter is still being worked on. If you want to use it for free, just make sure that you check. Some of the data can be off. So David's still working on that. It's still a ton of value in it. Just make sure that you double check the information. The community, again, our Discord, 100% free. We don't charge for it. Most channels out there charge for that. Yet another thing that we give away. We don't have any malicious intent here. We're not fudding or hyping anything. We give the good and the bad about everything. We want you to have the full picture. We're not influencers. We don't care what you do. You can hold all of your liquidity can be in XRP. None of my fucking business. We are just here to make sure
that would be a shame. Don't do that.
But that's our opinion. If you are bullish on it, we could be wrong. I don't think so, but we could be wrong. And you maybe it's going to $10,000 and you're going to make generational wealth.
I hope you do. I hope that they change their tokenomics and everything starts working and the adoption comes and the users come and it becomes like the base layer for finance. I hope that these things work out for you. I really do. I just don't see it, based on these little things called facts. So
or just the current state.
I just don't see it.
Can tokenomics change? Absolutely. For the good and the bad. We've seen it where projects have quietly taken away value capture, so that they can keep the profits and things like that.
Ondo.
Yeah. So this right here, we do charge for some things, but again, we give free trials. So this is our 3 times a week. David hosts video calls with the community Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you want to do a 7-day free trial, go ahead and sign up and you can see if there's value there. If there is, sign up and pay. If not, don't. That's fine. So that's right here, the premium live calls. If you want to check out all of our different shows, we have multiple live shows a day. We tore into it, but the blockchain report with Jeff, that was on while we were doing our 3rd hour of the show here.
David, it was a great 3rd hour too.
It was. David does a market wrap Monday through Friday at the close of the markets, where he does a technical analysis on traditional markets, crypto markets, all of it, and is great content. And then tonight we do our Unhinged on Thursday nights, our Red Pill, where we get political. We talk about psychedelics. We talk about whatever, and get drunk. People smoke it if they got it, and we just basically debate different things. Sometimes we all agree, and sometimes we adamantly disagree. But at the end of it, we're all friends. We all freaking love each other, and freaking we hug it out at the end. But we're going to discuss things, and we're going to voice our opinions. And then coaching. If you do want to accelerate, your crypto learning, if you want to accelerate how you can leverage DeFi to earn yield and do it the right way, David has a bespoke one-on-one coaching program. We do charge for it, but you can set up a discovery call, a no obligation free discovery call with David, where he'll meet with you, go over your current portfolio, go over what your risk profile, what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and your current knowledge level. And he might say that we can definitely do something here, or he might say go through the free DeFi University, get brushed up on this, and this, and then come back and talk to me. You might decide at the end of it you know what? I don't think David has anything to offer me. And if that's the case, fine. But, if you see that there's value there and you want to, purchase that service, it's always there. So with that, David, you got anything to close us out?
Yeah, Mike. So, when I take a look at digital asset markets, I'm always trying to learn about them. I want to educate myself. I want as much information as possible so I can make the best decisions possible. And I hope that everyone who's been watching us understands that. I'm after knowledge. I want truth. That's what I'm seeking. And, in the pursuit of truth, hopefully I'm able to, pick out the handful of digital assets that are able to, perform well for me. That's really what I'm looking for here. Just trying to seek truth, man. And I think that we do that by publishing all of this deep dive research every day. So yeah, and I really do enjoy people who disagree in the chat. Like, that's what makes this so enjoyable. Part of what makes this so enjoyable is having people who disagree. And I want opinions that run contrary to my own to be presented to me in the chat, because it makes me go, oh, you know what? Maybe I hadn't thought about that. Or, hey, that's a really good point.
It makes us more knowledgeable as well. We're here to learn as much as you are. This ecosystem changes daily, if not hourly. Blink and go on X, and there's a project that's saying that they're changing their tokenomics, or they have somebody launching, going live, or there's always something changing. We're not saying this is how it's always going to be. We are just stating how the current state of these projects. Can they change? Absolutely. Will they change? Probably. We are just saying that this is how things are as they are right now. That's it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, it's been a great show today, Mike.
Dude, it's been an amazing show. Thank you, David. Thank you for everybody in the chat. And just like David said, thank you for the back and forth. We greatly appreciate it. Longview, I just sent you a chat. Let us know. We're on Monday through Friday from 9 in the morning to 11 in the morning, Pacific time. Let us know a day that works. We are always looking for even-keeled, knowledgeable people like yourself to come on the show. If you end up liking it, we're looking for regulars. We would love to build a community of people that that genuinely want to educate the community about crypto in a non-hype, very logical, well-cited, process, to where people are not being driven by emotion. They're driven by facts, by knowledge, and by truth. So thank you all. I'm getting hoarse. I've talked way too much. And if you want to join us tonight for the Red Pill, we would love to see you there. Pour a drink, smoke it if you got it, and we'll have a good time. And until next time, Veteran Crypto out.
Peace.